Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has the Bijuu Armors in harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Kamen writer Arashi and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The truce pervert's gonna pay. When one looks down on Konohagakure no Sado, one would usually say it is a very peaceful village. Civilians and ninja like walking, or in the case of the ninja, running Parker style, of sorts across rooftops around the village handling business, going off to eat somewhere or in the case of the ninja go to and from places for missions and the like. However, if you are a certain orange-wearing, ramen-loving, pink-haired girl lover, in his mind at least, named Uzumaki Naruto, well, you'd be wrong. Because said orange-wearing ninja would currently be falling down a ravine. In this case, in the words of Naruto himself, a bottomless ravine. Why, you might ask? Because the thoughts of his supposed sensei, a one self-proclaimed super pervert Jiraiya of the Sannin. Said Sannin believing the only way for said boy to use his furry tenant's chakra and actually summon something bigger than his thumb is to put him in a situation that would undoubtedly kill him. Let's peek in on Naruto now, shall we? In the training field surrounding Konoha. Goddamn you, Iro Sannin. Yelled our fulling blonde hero. If I survive this, I'm gonna kick him so hard in the nuts, he'll never be able to piss anything but blood for the rest of his days. Were the following thoughts of our blonde Jinchuriki. However, there thankfully is a god, or in this case me, that took slight pity on the Kyuubi's container and decided it was time for a change. Shortly following his most recent thought, Naruto, in a last-ditch effort to survive, reached out for the ravine walls, only to all but shred his right arm on the very thick and sharp spikes of rock jutting from the sides. Thankfully, this had the bonus effect of causing so much pain to the poor Uzumaki that he near instantly blacked out. Naruto's mindscape, i.e. Kyuubi's third home. Oh my head. Said a very dazed and sore Naruto. As he stood up, he looked around to find himself in a very dank and dark sewer filled with leaky pipes and a cage with the word seal written on a piece of paper in the middle that kept the doors shut. Great, in the sewers, fan-freaking-tastic. He said with much sarcasm. Only to hear a very deep and dark laughter following his comment. Looking in said direction only to see what he had believed to be dead only less than a year ago. The giant nine-tailed fox known to all as Kyuubi. Shit. Naruto said with much annoyance and slight worry. You know, it's funny you would say such a thing seeing as this is your mind, states the Kyuubi with what many would call amusement in his voice. Realizing his last words, Naruto sweat drops at that. Well, since you made it this far, I can only guess you're here to demand some of my chakra and power, like it belongs to you, correct? Said Kyuubi in what anyone could tell was a very angry and pointed tone. Remembering his current predicament outside his mind, hey yeah no wait, said Naruto, while cutting himself off at the same time. Thinking on the Kyuubi's statement, Naruto realizes just how true the Kyuubi's words are. If I take his chakra and power like this, I'd be no better than Sasuke team, like with how he copied Lee's Taijutsu move in the prelims. Something I'm certain that he worked really hard on only for Sasuke to come around and basically steal it. With these slightly forlorn thoughts in mind, it became quite easy for Naruto to finally answer in a small voice, no thanks. Figures your humans always want what isn't yours or power that is. Wait, did you just say no? Said Kyuubi. No, saying he was a little surprised would be an understatement. It'd be like saying Kishimoto only has a small liking for the Uchihas. So yeah, big understatement. Can I ask why? Said the Kyuubi, who if he was human would be raising the people's EYEBROW'1. Well, I was planning to demand it from you since you are kinda living in me, but the way you stated how I'd demand it like what was yours is doesn't actually sit well with me. I mean, it'd be too much like stealing, and while I have stolen from others in the past, it was only cause they kinda stole from me first, said Naruto, thinking back on all the times he'd been overpriced by most shops in Konoha only to, at night, come back to steal a few items to get even. Huh, you're the only human I've ever met that actually turned down using my power or anything about me. Heh, you're like the anti-Uchiha actually, heh. Said the Kyuubi while laughing at his own joke. Hearing this only made Naruto have a bead of sweat fall from his head a second time. I'll take that as a compliment, I guess. Though now I have to figure out a way from falling to my death. You wouldn't mind lending me some of your chakra real quick, would you, at least to get out of this small mess that pervert put me, would you? Asked Naruto in a very nervous and surprisingly respectful tone of voice. I mean, he was still falling with a busted arm after all. The Kyuubi looked down on his third container. After a few seconds of staring at him, he lowered his head while still looking into the eyes of Naruto. I could do that, but how about we strike a different deal? Instead of me lending you some of my chakra, we could do something else instead. Stated Kyuubi. Like what? I can't really think of anything else you could do for me while being locked up like that, not to mention I don't really have the time to be discussing with you any deal, since I'm still falling to my death here. Said Naruto in an even more nervous and now panicked voice. Well, first of all, don't worry too much, time is slower here since the mind perceives things at a much faster rate, so you're still falling, yes. But you're not even close to the bottom yet, said the Nine Tails. Visibly relaxing after those words, Naruto looked back at the Kyuubi, asking him to continue. First, I want you to answer me this. During the few times you used my power, during your battle with that ice girl, too, and the time in the forest with that snake woman, did you not feel sore or exhausted afterwards? Asked Kyuubi with what could be an inquisitive look on his face. Now that you mention it, I did feel a bit sore after my fight with Haku-chan, and I did feel pretty exhausted even after I woke up in the forest after being knocked out fighting that snake woman, why, Naruto asked in return. The reason is, even though you're my Jinchuriki, seeing Naruto's confused expression, it's a human term for you and containers of my other siblings. Seeing him nod, he continues, and you have had me sealed in you since birth, your body will still never truly be able to handle my power. The sore feeling you get is from my chakra being forced into your body. As time goes on you would be able to harness more, but you'd still be feeling after effects, plus the strain it causes you and your chakra coils from the use can get substantially worse. Said Kyuubi in a lecture-style voice. Naruto was starting to see similarities between Iruka and Kyuubi as he continued on. But what does this have to do with anything? I mean, all you're really saying is that no matter what I do, I'd never safely be able to use your power or chakra, said Naruto, cutting Kyuubi off from his next sentence. However, after a quick glare from Kyuubi, that clearly said shut up, I'm getting to that, said Bijuu continued. Yes, that is true, but there's something I've thought on, this problem most only ever happens when a Jinchuriki uses our power and puts stress on said container's own chakra pathways. We Bijuu don't have pathways. We are physical constructs of chakra, so said pathways neither exist nor are needed. But if we use that chakra in another way that doesn't need it to either stay in your pathways for long or forcibly change your body, you might be unaffected by it at all. Said Kyuubi. But how would that be possible, let alone work, questioned our confused Uzumaki. I'm not fully certain myself, though I imagine something like a protective article of clothing or something of similar design may work, said Kyuubi, with as much annoyance at no clear answer as Naruto himself has. Thinking on the Kyuubi's words for a minute, Naruto remembered a picture he saw once while in the Hokage's office. He recalled looking at some of his Oji-san's history books, specifically ones on the samurai of Tetsu no Kuni. What about an armor, like the one samurai use? Suggested, questioned Naruto. That actually might work, said a surprised Bijuu. If we have my chakra running through you into a piece of armor, like a gauntlet or chest piece, it would not only fortify the armor, but it probably wouldn't hurt you very much, or at all. Said Kyuubi. He was actually shocked that something so simple would most likely work. There are a few problems though. Said Kyuubi in an annoyed tone. Like what, question, said Bijuu's container. Well, for one, the armor would have to be made of a very strong chakra-focusing material. Secondly, it'd have to be practically covered in several powerful seals to keep my chakra from damaging the armor or creating a backlash. And finally, we'd have to do this far enough away from Konoha so no one finds out what we are doing. Said Kyuubi in a very serious tone, one Naruto recognized was almost like when he saw the Sandaime talking to his Anbu. Well, how do we go about doing all this? Asked Naruto. It shouldn't be too hard. If what I know of the pervert that's now training you, if you can call it training, he is probably the most acknowledged seal user alive. He did train your Yondaime after all. Stated the giant kitsune, though one could easily hear the venom in his voice at the word Yondaime. Well, that could work, but I can't think of where would be a good place to train or where to get the armor I'll need. Questioned the Uzumaki, knowing full well that such materials would cost large sums of money and he's not well liked in nearly all stores in Konoha anyway. Wait, I got it. Do you remember that girl who is on the team with that Hyuga you're fighting in the finals? Asked the Kyuubi. Yumi Bushy-brow's female teammate. What about her? Asked Naruto, with him pulling off the aforementioned people's eyebrow this time around. Well, remember how she fought with all those weapons? Replied the Kyuubi, getting a nod from Naruto. He continued. Well, if you think on the amount of weapons she had, it makes one think how she owns so many, especially since weaponry seems to be her specialty. The only way she could afford these tools is if she worked at a ninja tool store or her parents run one. 3, stated the Kyuubi. But how would I find her? I mean, it's not like we even know each other. Asked the blonde. That shouldn't be too hard actually, since we know that her teammate is in the hospital. You can just head there and ask him for directions. Pointed out the Kyuubi. Oh, right. Naruto mumbled while scratching the back of his head. As for a safe training area, that's probably the easiest part, just train in that forest you were in not too long ago. Kyuubi said like it was the simplest thing in the world. Oh right, yeah, that could work. Wait, what? Shouted Naruto with both shocked and horrified expression on his face. You want me to train in that forest? Are you nuts? Yelled our favorite blonde Uzumaki, who looked as horrified as a 4-year-old child being told there is no Santa Claus. Kyuubi just looked at Naruto like he was stupid. Of course I'm telling you to train there, it's probably the most safest place, stated the fox with no true concern in his voice. Naruto still just looked shocked. Safest, that place is a death trap. Once again our hero shouted. Kyuubi just looked at him with a growing tick on his forehead. Yes, it's safest, because neither your opposition in the coming tournament, most ninja and no civilians, will even step one foot into that place without good reason. We will be fine and undisturbed in there. The Kyuubi said with some aggravation in his voice. Realizing the fox's points were true, he decided not to push it. Alright, we'll try it your way. Sighed Naruto. He was really not looking forward to this. It was during this silence that Naruto brought up a forgotten thought. Oh shit, I still need to get out of this stupid ravine. Yelled our orange hero. Don't worry, for this one time I'll lend you some of my chakra to summon something to get out of this damn situation. Just do me 2 favors in return. Asked the kitsune. What? Questioned Naruto with a look of slight desperation on his face. When you get out, make sure the first chance you get, kick that Sannin hard in the crotch for me. Getting a nod from Naruto, he quickly continued, and as a request, I'd like it if you allowed me access to your senses so I can see the outside world easier than instead just through your memories. Kyuubi asked. How would I do something like that? Questioned Naruto. All you have to do is will it to happen, since this is your mind and body, it obeys your commands. So all you have to do is think it and it will happen here. Stated the Bijuu. Looking at the fox for a minute, Naruto finally agreed. Alright, just will it to happen, right? He asked. Seeing the kitsune nod his head, Naruto quickly did as asked and thought, let Kyuubi share my senses. Feeling nothing happen, he looked around and saw no changes. Thinking it didn't work, he looked at Kyuubi only for the fox to quickly say, don't worry, since your kinda passed out, right? No, I don't sense anything either, I will once you wake up. He stated to Naruto. Oh okay. So can I get your chakra now? Asked Naruto. Yes, of course. Also, as a quick heads up, since we now have a connection from you coming here, that is, we can no talk on the outside, all you need to do is think and I'll hear you and I can talk with you through your thoughts, okay? Said Kyuubi. Naruto nodded at this. Alright, here's some of my chakra, summon something quickly before you become a bloody paste on the ground out there. Said the Kyuubi. 4. Alright, see you later. Said Naruto as he quickly started fading back to consciousness. Giant ravine outside Konoha. Waking up in the real world, he quickly bit back the cry of pain from the damage to his right arm. Damn, forgot about that. He cursed. Thankfully, as he was drawing on Kyuubi's chakra, it started healing his arm more quickly than it already was. Shocking our young Uzumaki hero briefly. Shaking his head and focusing on the current matter at hand, he quickly goes through the needed hand signs and using the blood on his arm cries. Kuchius no jutsu. Poof, where the hell am I? Shouted a booming voice. As the smoke clears, Naruto finds himself lying down on the head of a giant toad. Quickly noticing where he is, the great toad boss jumps up and out of the giant ravine he finds himself in. Feeling a small weight on his head, he sees a small boy laying down on his forehead. Alright, I did it. Shouted our hero, only to collapse immediately afterwards. Woo, that took a lot out of me. I see what Kyuubi meant by always being tired afterwards. Stated Naruto, feeling the mentioned strain on his muscles and chakra from the forced, though brief, recharge brought on by Kyuubi's chakra. Hey Gaki, why are you on my head and where's that pervert Jiraiya at? Said aforementioned giant toad yelled. After noticing his current situation, Naruto quickly slides down to meet the summoned boss of the toads face to face. However, before he even says a word, he gets quickly cut off by a familiar dark and booming voice. Gaki, before you even shout a word, which we both know you were about to, let me remind you he's now got you resting on his head while near a massive chasm. So it might be in your best interest that you speak to him in a respectable and humble, not to mention quiet tone. Said Kyuubi, knowing full well that if not handled right, his container would be knocking on death's door very early from just one swat of the giant toad's tongue. Taking in what his new partner said, Naruto halts his words for a second to try to get the giant toad to not give him a reason to drop him back into the gorge. With a calm smile on his face, masking his nervousness, he says, well, I'm not sure where Hiro-sanin is, but it was me who summoned you, Gamabunta-san. Following his words, there was a tense silence, followed up by a very loud and slightly mocking laugh. Ha 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 ha. Laughed said Boss Toad. You expect me to believe a small and young Gaki like you summoned me, the boss summon of the toads? Ha 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 ha. Said Toad while continuing to laugh. Now it's obvious that these words pissed off Naruto quite a bit. After all living the life he has, it's not exactly uncommon for him to be put down, mocked, and having nearly everyone constantly saying and questioning his abilities. However, deciding to still keep with Kyuubi's advice, he decided to take the high road and try to prove the legitimacy to his claim. Listen, if you'll at least give me a minute, I can give you proof I did summon you. Would you at least give me that? Asked our tired blonde. Well, you say you can prove it, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt at least for the moment. However, if you can't prove your case, I'm gonna step on you, got that? Said the boss of the toads. While it seemed kinda harsh, one has to realize that Gamabunta is still the Toad Summon boss after all and has one of the highest chakra costs in his clan. So it's not too hard for him to believe some punk kid summoned him when it'd take the chakra of a high jounin to do so and not be out like this kid was now. Alright, well for starters, if I didn't summon you, where is Hiro-sanin right now? I mean, if he summoned you, would it not be bad for him not to be present to explain why he would need to summon you for? Also, if I didn't summon you, then how would I get on your head? And lastly, since you're the boss summon of the Toads, that means you know every name that appears when someone signs your contract, so you could easily check and see my name, Uzumaki Naruto, on it. Stated Naruto with a bright smile on his face, believing he covered any bases that Gamabunta would use to deny him signing and summoning him here. Gamabunta paused in his comeback to go over all that the little Gaki presented to him. How the Gaki's right, Jiraiya would know better than to summon me and not be present. I'd kick his ass regardless where we were if he did so next time I'd see him. And he's right on the contract part too. I'll have to check on that after returning home after this matter's settled. Lastly, he's right on the landing reason too. There's no way I'd have been summoned with this Gaki right on top of the summoning seal. Thought Gamabunta. With all these facts presented to him, Gama had no real way to refute his claim. Then remembering the name he went by, his eyes widened. No way, he can't be their child. Can he? Looking up at the boy for a more accurate look at him, he nearly gasped in surprise. As Naruto was lying down on Gamabunta, he remembered a very similar scene to when another young blonde boy summoned him for the first time. Well, I'll be damned, he looks almost exactly like Minato. Even more if those marks on his face are to go by, then he's that same boy. The same one from that terribly night all those years ago. Thought a quite sad Toad. There's no doubt in my mind he's their child. That means the pervert is actually doing something for the boy. No, Kami only knows how many times Shima and Fukasaku have told Jiraiya he should be having a more active role in the boy's life. With all this presented to me, I can only think of one thing to do, and that's take the boy under my wing and train him with Jiraiya and the elder Toads. With his mind made up and thoughts organized on the matter, Gamabunta decided to give one last test for his newest summoner. Alright kid, you got me on those points of yours, though just because you could summon me isn't fully enough for me to accept you as my summoner, or at least one who I will allow to summon me. Seeing Naruto's confused and slowly angered face, Gamabunta quickly cuts him off. Before you get all angry at me, let me finish. As I am the boss, I'll give you one test to prove you're worthy enough to summon me. Challenge the boss Toad. Whatever it is, I'll ace it. Accepted Naruto, who got back to his feet at this point while staring challengingly into the giant Toad's eyes. Spunky Gaki, aren't you? Well, the test is pretty simple. Stay on my back with what little strength and chakra you have left. You have to stay on till sunset. Do this and I'll have no problem with you summoning me and the other higher ranked Toads, got it? Said Gamabunta, looking at Naruto. Just bring it, said Naruto, with a determined expression on his face, while signaling the boss Toad with a universal hand signal for bring it. Seeing this, said Toad could only smirk while thinking of what an interesting new summoner he has. Time skip 3 hours. We now find our blonde-haired hero exhausted and sore, but all around happy. He just finished his test with the boss Toad Gamabunta and lasted the entire 3 hours before sunset to pass. Feeling his exhaustion get to him, he decided to rest here for the night, being far too tired to move. Seeing his newest apprentice asleep, Jiraiya returned to the remains of the forest Gamabunta flattened during his test. With a pleased smile on his face, he gently picked up Naruto and took him to his apartment to rest, while leaving a note for him to tell him where to find him tomorrow for his next training session. He mastered that a lot faster than I thought he would. I guess I can find him something else to work on though. Sensei said he learned the Kage Bushin no Jutsu some time ago. I wonder if he knows the memory feature. I'll ask him tomorrow and see where it takes us from there. Thought one white-haired Sanin. The next day, damn son, go burn in hell. Cursed a sleepy and irritated Uzumaki, not even realizing the stupidity of his statement. After trying and failing to get the damn giant fireball in space to leave him, he slowly but surely got out of bed, only to blink and realize he's not outside in the training fields where he recalled falling asleep at last night. How the hell I get here? Could have sworn I was in the training fields. Thought the confused Naruto. Looking around for a second, he spies a note hanging on his door. Getting up and reading it, he then realizes Jiraiya brought him back here following his passing out. How the old pervert brought me back, I guess that was nice of him. Thought Naruto. Going over the note again, he notices Jiraiya asking to meet him around 9 AM at Ichiraku's. Looking over at his clock, he sees it's only a little past 8, realizing he should get moving so he can be there on time. After all, he'd rather not want to be late like his other sensei makes a habit of doing. Quickly showering and grabbing a bowl of instant ramen, he's about to get it ready when a deep and familiar voice speaks up. Don't even think about it, Gaki. Shouted the Kyuubi. Wah. Kyuubi, what the hell? Yelled back our both surprised and angry Uzumaki. You wanna be stronger to beat that Hyuga? Well, here's lesson number 1 from the great Kyuubi sensei. Eat healthier food. Also speak through your thoughts Gaki, don't need people questioning you after all. Said the Kyuubi who quickly followed up with. Besides Raymond isn't too healthy to eat constantly like you do, heck I bet it's part of the reason you're so short right now. The Kyuubi finished stated, knowing that Naruto's height was a sore spot for him. Before he could even say another word, Naruto once again stopped to think and after hearing Kyuubi's last statement on the matter. Begrudgingly accepted it, after all if it meant getting bigger, he'd suck it up and start eating less ramen for the time being. So putting away his instant ramen, Naruto grabs a few fruits that had been left on his counter, most likely from Jiraiya or Kakashi he figured, and walked out of his apartment to go see said pervy sage. As he was locking his door, Kyuubi decided to remind Naruto of their conversation from yesterday. Gaki don't forget to ask the pervert to teach you anything he has on Fuinjutsu when we meet up with him. Don't worry I haven't forgotten, also to head over to the hospital to see Lee and ask where his teammate lives right. Asked Naruto. Yeah also don't forget to kick him in the nuts for the both of us from pushing you down that ravine. Replied Kyuubi, with a bit of maliciousness in his voice. I won't. Replied Naruto who also had a touch of maliciousness in his tone as well. At Ichiraku Ramen, we find said toad sage and super pervert quietly enjoying the weather while waiting on his newest apprentice to show up to further his training for the upcoming exam finals. When suddenly he felt a very uncomfortable chill run up his spine. What the hell was that, haven't felt a chill like that since the time I peeped at the one hot spring, only to discover Shizune was in there. Thought Jiraiya with a bit of paranoia remembering that day. Said incident led to a particularly bad beating suffered from Tsunade for peeping on said apprentice. Not as bad as when I peeped on Tsunade herself or the time I peeped on Kushina, but it's up there. With these thoughts in mind, Jiraiya figured it'd be best not to go collecting any research until after the exams were over. Not realizing his approaching apprentice was planning to invoke untold pain and embarrassment for the Sannin in the coming weeks. Chapter end. Chapter 2. Plans and surprises. Konoha training grounds. Once again we find the relatively calm and quiet as a morning city can be, broken by the high-pitched screams of Konoha's self-proclaimed super pervert. Said pervert currently hold his package while crying on the ground. Reason being well his newest apprentice not liking the early idea of being thrown over a seemingly bottomless canyon would make sense. At least to everyone but Jiraiya. That was for yesterday pervy sage, said our blonde hero currently standing over said sage. After resting for a little while said sage, with some difficulty, climbed to his feet and moved to sit down for a moment to heal his sore groin. Okay, I might have deserved that was the first words from Jiraiya. Damn right you did, muttered Naruto feeling much better after delivering said divine punishment. Alright, okay now since you proved yourself worthy to Gamabunta and were able to summon him, I guess we can move on to something else to train in while every so often going back to summoning, how's that sound Gaki? Asked Jiraiya. Fine I was going to ask you for some training in Fuinjutsu anyway actually. Stated Naruto. Hearing his apprentice's request he looked at him with a touch of surprise, really, figured you'd be asking for ninjutsu or taijutsu, remarked Jiraiya. Any particular reasons why? Asked the toad sage. Well I figured I got this giant ass seal on my stomach I'd kinda like to learn more on the field, since sealing is kinda a major factor in my life since birth, Naruto retorted with a noticeable amount of annoyance in his voice. Noted his tone Jiraiya was quick to agree, saying he'd start on that in a bit, only to be cut off by Naruto. You think you could instead train me in Fuinjutsu while I head over to the hospital instead? Questioned Naruto. Jiraiya hearing his idea was of course confused, Naruto you do realize I'd have to train you, so you can't go to the hospital at the same time. Said Jiraiya with an expression that could be read as are you an idiot? Seeing the expression Naruto quickly made a cage bunshin and while pointing at it said no you're trained this Naruto in Fuinjutsu while I head to the hospital to go see a friend. Realizing Naruto meant to use the memory ability from his cage bunshins, he asked for him to make a few more while stated he'd see him back here around lunchtime. Nodding his head and making 4 more bunshins, both sensei and student parted ways. One to the hospital to see about his newest project and one to train some clones in Fuinjutsu. -10 minutes later, Konoha Hospital. Walking up to the entrance Naruto headed up to the reception desk, only to spot one of the people Naruto needed to see already walking off. Guy-sensei, hey wait. Called Naruto seeing the spandex wearing Jounin about to walk off. Hearing his name called, Guy turned to see Naruto walking up to him. Yosh. Hello Naruto-kun, might I ask why you are looking for me on this youthful day? Shouted Guy, only to be given the stink eye from the receptionist for his loud voice. Quickly lowering his volume so as not to be thrown out Guy said, sorry, yes Naruto is there something I can do for you? Seeing he had Guy's attention, Naruto brought up the question Kyuubi mentioned to him the other day. Hey Guy-sensei I was wondering does your student Tenten happen to work at a ninja weapon shop or smithy? Questioned Naruto. Guessing where this was going Guy said, yes she does, I can assume you're asking so as to get some new equipment before the finals, yes? he said with a questioning look. Yeah, I'm gonna need some really high-grade stuff for some things I'm working on, and I figured with all the weapons she used during her match in the prelims, she might either know or work at a shop, said Naruto with a curious look on his face. I see. Well, if that's the case, I would have no problem taking you there after I stop in to see Lee, if that's not a problem. Asked Konoha's green beast. No, that's fine, I was going to see Lee while I was here anyway. Said Naruto while giving a sad smile, remembering the damage Lee suffered at the hands of Gaara. Yosh. Your flames of youth indeed burn brightly to come and see an injured comrade, Naruto-kun. Yelled Mido Guy while giving his patented good guy pose, sparkling teeth included. Twitching a little at the poses, Naruto quickly suggested seeing Lee before the nurses kicked Guy out for shouting again while hearing Kyuubi in his mind shouting, ahhhhhh. My eyes, what is that thing, kid? It's just Guy-sensei, and where have you been? You haven't said a thing since breakfast. Questioned Naruto while trying to keep from giving any hints to his inner conversation. I've been going over some more ideas for the armor, mostly finalizing anything we went over last night, Kyuubi stated, who was currently looking over a massive blueprint of the armor in Naruto's mind. Thinking back on last night's events, Naruto recalled his and Kyuubi's design ideas for the armor as Naruto slept. They came across several ideas, most concerning the process of how to match each armor piece for one of Kyuubi's tails. After many hours, the basic designs were done. They currently mapped out that a set amount of Kyuubi's chakra would be focused on a single piece of armor. The equivalent of Naruto drawing forth a tail of chakra would be one piece of armor per chakra tail, thereby making it 9 pieces of armor, with one tail per piece. They decided on the unlocking feature to be the following. First tail equals right gauntlet, second tail equals left gauntlet, third tail equals armored boots and GREAVES both legs, fourth tail equals CHAUSSES both upper thighs connects to boots, fifth tail equals PAULDRONS both arms, connects to gauntlets, sixth tail equals armored belt, seventh tail equals chest ARMOR connects with belt to connect arms and leg armor together, eighth tail equals HELMET covers entire head and neck, ninth tail equals unique ATTACHMENT cloak, cape, mantle, etc. The last part was inconclusive at the moment, so Naruto and Kyuubi decided to let that one be left up for a later attachment. Naruto. Yelled on Rock Lee, looking around. Naruto quickly sweat dropped. I really need to pay more attention to my surroundings, thought Naruto. It seemed during his recollection of his armor design plans with Kyuubi, he and Guy made it to Lee's hospital room. Oh sorry Lee, I was a bit preoccupied with my thoughts at the moment, said Naruto while scratching the back of his head and smiling. Sometime later, we find Naruto following Mido Guy outside the hospital and heading towards what Naruto assumed was Tenten's shop. After walking for a good couple of minutes, we find our hero and his guide outside a plain and non-descriptive shop between the ninja district and civilian district. Naruto was about to mention it before Guy cut him off. I know the place seems pretty plain, Naruto-kun, but I can assure you that this shop is the go-to for any decent and acknowledged ninja, said a surprisingly serious Guy. Only to ruin it by following up with, Yosh, no, let us stroke the flames of youth in you, Naruto-kun, with some new equipment. Shouted an excited Guy. Sweat dropping at the overly excited Joun, and Naruto followed him inside only for his jaw to drop through the floor at the amount of armor, weapons, and standard ninja equipment lining the walls and in racks around the floor. Hell, even the ceiling had ninja stuff of all kinds hanging from it and on high-rise displays. Hearing the sound of people chuckling, he turned to see Guy, Tenten, and an as of yet unknown man, probably the owner, Naruto thought, looking in his direction. Walking over to the trio, he got a good look at the man. He wore a dirty tan long-sleeved shirt covered by an even dirtier brown smock, a pair of loose black pants, and on his feet heavy-duty boots. Regardless of his rather plain outfit, the man was all but plain looking. He had a rather angular face with a well-kept beard and sharp brown eyes, the same shade as Tenten's, must be related, thought Naruto. To top it off, he had a very muscular build and short straight black hair. So Guy, is there a reason for you stopping by with the kid? I already resupplied you with your usual gear last week, so I know you can't have run out yet. Questioned the large man. No, I'm still quite alright, Dustin. I actually came to help Naruto-kun here get some new supplies. Answered Guy with his signature pose. Sweat dropping at her sensei's actions, Tenten turned to Naruto, who was checking out several pieces of armor on the wall. Interested in armor? You know that stuff won't protect you from Neji-kun, right? Said Tenten with a bit of an arrogant tone and smirk on her face. Well, you never know, besides it doesn't say anything good for you if you can stand there and belittle me. Yet not only am I in the finals, something you aren't, but I'm also fighting for Hinata. Someone your teammate almost killed who happens to be his own family. Stated Naruto with a bit of venom in his voice while looking at Tenten with an angry expression on his face. Hearing his, Dustin looked at his daughter with no amount of disappointment on his face, and in his words, Tenten, you never told me that part of the prelims. Why? Dustin questioned with a little bit of anger. Realizing she was put on the spot and how her words came out, Tenten quickly said, "Sorry, I guess that came out kinda mean. I didn't mean to offend you, I guess I'm just not used to Neji-kun acting so terrible is all." Seeing she did seem apologetic, Naruto said, "It's fine," though if one listened close enough they could tell Naruto was by no means truly accepting of Tenten's apology. Trying to break the uncomfortable silence in his shop, Dustin turned to Naruto and decided to ask what he was looking for. "Well, I actually wanted to ask if you had any high-grade chakra metal, I need quite a bit for a project I'm working on," asked Naruto. "We have quite a bit of the stuff, but it's really expensive. I don't think you would have the funds to buy enough to make even a single gauntlet made of the metal," said Dustin in an apologetic tone. Realizing he forgot he most likely didn't have the money to pay for the armor, Naruto was quick to start panicking only for Kyuubi to cut in on his thoughts. "Kid. Calm down, I realized you might not have the necessary money already." Hearing this, Naruto was of course not happy. "What do you mean you already knew this, why didn't you tell me before?" thought Naruto, who started to get a bit angry at the lack of forethought on the Kyuubi's part. "Like I said, calm down. There's an easy way around this, now repeat what I'm about to tell you to this," Dustin stated Kyuubi. Back on the outside, Naruto, seeing the looks he was getting, quickly repeated Kyuubi's words. "Look, I know I don't have the money, but is there a way I could work out some kinda plan with you, like say working for you to pay off the Ryu? I'll need to pay you for the metal," asked Naruto in a humble tone while lowering his head. Hearing Naruto's proposition, Dustin gave it a bit of thought. Well, I could always use another pair of hands around here, and if what Iruka and Guy have told me of the boy is true, he's a very hard worker, I guess it could hurt to give it a try." Coming to a decision, Dustin looked at Naruto with a stern look upon his face. "Alright, here's the deal, I'll agree to letting you work here if you pass a test. If you pass it, I'll hire you and we can work out you paying through your work here on the metal. If you fail, we'll instead work out a payment plan that has you paying me back over an extended period of time with the money you make through missions. How's that sound to you?" asked Dustin. Tenten looked at her dad in surprise. "You're not really thinking of having him work here, Dad?" asked Tenten. Looking over at his daughter, he said, "Of course I am, with you being an active Kunoichi for over a year. No, I've been slowly falling behind on my jobs. With an extra hand, I'd hopefully get back on track without having to hire a worker and pay at the same time. Working this deal with Naruto gives me a chance to hire an extra hand without technically paying him," stated a straight-faced Dustin. Looking back at Naruto, he saw a determined face looking right back at him. "Challenged accepted," were the next words from our orange-dressed hero. 2. Hearing the words and seeing the determined Jinchuriki pointing at him put an amused smile on Dustin's face. "Well then, let's see what you're made of, Gaki. Follow me to the back." -2 hours later, we now find ourselves standing in Dustin's smithing room. Currently going over a small group of kunai and shuriken is said blacksmith, while both Naruto and Tenten wait to the side, Guy having left having to go check on Neji's training at the Hyuga compound. The expression looking over with a fine-tooth comb did no justice to how much detail and inspection Dustin was giving to the small weapons he had Naruto forge as his test. I think I speak for most of yous when I say there is no doubt that blacksmithing in the Naruto verse is different, so I'm just guessing here. After what felt like hours for the young genin, but really only a few minutes, Dustin stepped back and turned to look Naruto right in the eyes. Noting his nervous expression, though well hidden, Dustin spoke. "Well, they probably won't be put up for sale." At these words, Naruto looked a little downtrodden. "I will say for your first time it's be better to put them up on a display, you're hired." Hearing these words, Naruto and Tenten had different responses. "Really, alright," shouted our blonde hero, while our favorite weapons mistress had this to say. "What, not even my first weapons got that much praise, how could his be any better?" yelled an irate Tenten. Seeing the anger on his daughter's face, Dustin quickly reminded her that her first attempt was at the age of 10, and she was his daughter. He expected her to be far more better from being around them since birth. "You assume your first try compared to Naruto's is a totally different story by way of background. Well, you have my training from your academy days, his was only from his own instincts and the instructions I gave him. The boy has a natural talent for smithing in the same regard your teammate Rock Lee has a natural talent for taijutsu," said Dustin with an utmost serious expression on his face. Seeing he had their undivided attention, he continued, "When Guy preaches his belief on natural talent and hard work talent, he's very much right. Every person is born with a natural skill or talent at birth in my mind. Some have an interest and work hard at it, while others have a natural attunement to a specific field. In your case, Tenten, while you have a natural born gift for forging, Naruto has a natural gift of the hard worker. When he sets his mind to something, he gives it over 100% effort, regardless of what it is or how hard it may be. At least that's what Iruka and the Sandaime have told me," stated Dustin. Starting to understand her father's words, Tenten turned to Naruto. "Look, I'm sorry for my earlier words. It was wrong of me and I hope if it isn't too much trouble if we could try again," asked Tenten with a bit of hope in her eyes. Thinking it over in his mind for a bit, Naruto looked back at Tenten. Sure, apology accepted. However, I suggest you not make the same mistake twice. The last thing I want to deal with while working here is a female Neji. Okay, Naruto stated, more so than asked of Tenten. Realizing her earlier remarks were within that territory, she quickly nodded her head while agreeing. Seeing the two finish, Dustin quickly called back Naruto's attention. Alright, now then, with all this out of the way, I've been meaning to ask Naruto, what exactly do you need all the metal for and how much as well? Asked Dustin with a curious look on his face. Well, I actually want to keep it a secret, but I guess since I'll both be working on it here and using your supplies, I can say this much. I'm going to create a unique full body armor that crosses between ninja and samurai while using my special chakra with it. Said Naruto. Dustin, realizing what he meant by special chakra, looked at Naruto with both interest and a little fear. Seeing the fear in his eyes, Naruto quickly stated, but don't worry, I'll be having Jiraiya-sensei helping me with that part, so you don't have to worry. Nodding at that, since Jiraiya is Konoha's premier and most acknowledged seal expert, Dustin sighs a little in relief. Before any more can be said, all three hear the doorbell chime. Realizing he never fully closed up the shop, Dustin heads up front while being followed by the two genin. All three come out to see one Jiraiya walking in the shop with a slightly annoyed expression on his face. Seeing the Sannin in the shop, Naruto realizes it's past 12 and forgot to meet up for lunch with the Sannin. Seeing his wayward apprentice in Dustin's shop, like Mido Guy said he'd be, Jiraiya says, there you are Gaki, I've been looking all over for you. If it wasn't for Guy, I'd still be searching for you right now. Sorry Ero Sannin, but I was busy with a test of sorts with Tenten's dad here. Said Naruto while pointing at said blacksmith. Looking at Dustin, Jiraiya quickly smiles. Good to see you're still doing well, Dustin. And I'm guessing the young lady here is your daughter Tenten you told me about some time ago. Smiling back at the Toad Sage, Dustin replies, indeed, it's good to see you again, to Jiraiya-sama. And yes, this is my Tenten-chan. Said blacksmith, placing a hand on his daughter. Then realizing what Naruto called Jiraiya a second ago, he starts laughing out loud. Ha 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 ha, Ero Sannin, that's a new one. Ha 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 ha. Remembering what his apprentice called him, he quick bops him on the head. Ow, what was that for Ero Sannin? Yelled Naruto with a look of annoyance, only to get the same look in return. How many times do I have to tell you not to call me that? Yelled said angry perverted sage. Calming down for a moment, Jiraiya decided to ask what Naruto was doing at Dustin's to begin with. I came to get some new gear and to learn blacksmithing from him, said Naruto. A little surprised at Naruto's newest interest, Jiraiya asked, not to common a field for an active ninja to be taking, what exactly do you want to learn it for? It's a bit of a secret project that I'll explain later, Naruto stated with a bit of an excited look on his face. Figuring he won't hear more till later, Jiraiya decided to bring up a thought that had come to mind during his search for Naruto earlier. Hey Gaki, I've meant to ask, besides Neji and your teammate the Uchiha, who else is in the finals? I ask cause you might need to plan a few things for your later opponents if you beat Neji. Stated Jiraiya with a serious look on his face. Realizing the benefit of being prepared for his other future matches, Naruto quickly listed off the other matches and his future opponents. Well, first off, regardless of what anyone says or believes, I am beating Neji. But the other people in the tournament are my teammate Sasuke, my former classmate Aburame Shino, the team from Suna, Gaara and his siblings Temari and Kankuro, a girl from Kumo named Yujito 3, and an Otokunoichi named Kin 4. Replied Naruto. Well, I'm sure you saw all their matches in the prelims, right? Asked Jiraiya. Receiving a nod from Naruto, he continued, alright then, what's the styles that they all used? Thinking for a few seconds, Naruto replied, well, I already know how Sasuke fights, and since he's being trained by Kakashi, he most likely will focus mostly on ninjutsu. Getting a nod from Jiraiya, Naruto then said, and Gaara uses his sand for attack and defense while not moving at all, his sister uses wind jutsu through her fan, and his brother uses a puppet. Neji is all Juuken and his bloodline the Byakugan. Shino relies almost solely on his bugs for combat, and that girl Yujito uses fast jutsu and a mix of fire and lightning jutsu. The last one, Kin, uses Yinjutsu and her flexibility while relying on Senbon more so than kunai or shuriken. Taking on a thoughtful expression, Jiraiya then asked, this Kin girl, who did she beat in the prelims? Remembering that particular match, Naruto said, my old classmate Shikamaru. Why? Trying to remember the name, Jiraiya's eye widened, wait, you don't mean Shikamaru Nara, right? Hearing the surprise in Jiraiya's voice, Naruto raised an eyebrow. Naruto obviously doesn't smell what Jiraiya's cooking, I know bad, so sue me. Alright Naruto, tell me exactly what happened in that match, okay? Hearing the shock in his voice and seeing it on his face, Naruto began to recount the match from the prelims. Arashi hops into the DeLorean time for a flashback, shoots off into the past. Flashback, Forest of Death Tower, Chunin exam prelims. Nara Shikamaru vs Tsuchi-kin, up to the finish. For all intents and purposes Tsuchi-kin was screwed. Not only was she completely at the mercy of her opponent's cage main no jutsu, but her main strategy and specialty failed her at least. That's what it looked like to the unassuming viewer, which was actually everybody in the room. You see, during their brief fight in the forest, Kin noticed two subtle but noteworthy weaknesses to the Nara's jutsu. First, he must stay completely focused on his target, and secondly, he can be overpowered if done correctly. Now you're probably wondering how one overpowers the jutsu correctly. Well, it's quite simple really. If one has more strength in a muscle area that trumps another's, it's easy to believe that they can overpower the other. A good example would be if one person shows noticeable muscular strength in their arm, while another doesn't. It's right to assume the one that has said muscularity can beat the one without any in an arm wrestling match. Now in the case with Kin, she decided, with what little knowledge she had on the Nara, was that because he is in nearly every way the definition of a slacker, he most likely doesn't train nearly that much on his physical ability and more on his family jutsu. Taking that into consideration, she uses the natural flexibility she has from being not only female, seeing as females biologically have more flexibility than males, her kunoichi training, and then the extra training she took in making her body far more flexible than any other kunoichi around her age could have at this point in time. She stretched her back farther than Shikamaru did to not only miss giving herself a very nasty concussion, but also the kunai meant to distract her. After not hearing a loud thump from his opponent hitting the wall, Shikamaru, while looking from between his legs, noticed Kin perfectly fine and still conscious. It was at this point everyone realized that Kin somehow was able to keep herself from going head first into the wall. Quickly getting over his shock, the Nara couldn't help but question, "How did you do that?" Deciding to be a bit smug of her clever tactic, Kin spoke up, "Well, you may have control on my body, you neglected the fact that since I'm a girl, my physical makeup is different from yours. Because of that I was able to with some difficulty contort my back a bit more to miss the wall." Hearing her explanation and realizing his minor mistake, Shikamaru, and those still in the room, stood with widened eyes and some having unhinged jaws, mostly those of the Konoha Jounins and Team 10. "The best part is, if my guess is right, since you certainly seem for all intents to be a total slacker, I highly doubt you'll be able to hold this position much longer, while I could probably hold it all day," stated a confident Kin. Coming to the same conclusion Kin had, Shikamaru was faced with a dilemma. If I realize the jutsu, she will be on the attack again, and most definitely not fall for the same trick twice. On the other hand, I can't hold this position for much longer, not to mention I'll use up all my chakra, and she will still most definitely still have plenty of her own left. Troublesome. Thought or what seemed to be screwed Nara. Deciding that letting her free and conserving chakra was better than having none, Shikamaru released his jutsu and pulled himself back upwards. Only to notice Kin charging straight at him far quicker than before and in such a way that he wouldn't be able to recapture her, i.e. in a zigzagging pattern. Once she closed in on him, Kin began a fast and interesting jutsu assault. In fact, it looked like she was dancing and fighting at the same time. 5. During this assault, Shikamaru was forced completely on the defensive, which is to be expected since as a clan that's unique jutsu is for support and capture to jutsu ain't really high on their skill list. However, that's when something odd began to happen. As their jutsu battle continued, Shikamaru started, for almost no noticeable reason, to slow down. "Stance, what's Shika doing, is he tired or something?" said a worried Choji. Giving a more focused look at the fight, Asuma started to notice something really wrong with the fight. "No, it's not him being tired, it's like he's slowing down on purpose," said a shocked Asuma. Back to the fight, and Asuma was right as they watched on as Shikamaru's reaction time and dodging speed grew slower and slower, almost unnoticeable, but by those with more experience. Shikamaru himself, noticing his declining speed, looked on as Kin continued her assault and scored a heavy spin kick to his cranium. Seeing her opponent down but not out, Kin quickly grabbed his left leg and with a quick spin to build momentum, dropped her knee hard on the side of Shikamaru's own. What followed is a very loud and pain-filled scream as Kin broke Shikamaru's left knee. With a quick flourish and pounce on her opponent's prone body, she places a senbonnet just behind his ear so that if she wanted could pierce it straight to his brain's bottom lobe. Heiei, seeing the situation that the match was in, quickly called the match. "Shasa, Tsuchi Kin of Odo." Hearing her name called and seeing no point in continuing, Kin removed herself from Shikamaru's back and walked slowly away. Before she walked up the steps to the ringside walkway, she heard her downed opponent call out to her. "How was it you slowed me down? And don't try lying, I was using my chakra to up my speed, but I still was slowing down regardless. What was it?" questioned an injured Shikamaru. Deciding to be a little smug with her win, Kin said nothing but pointed at the senbon with the bells she threw near the beginning of the match. Looking at them for a second, he soon realized what it was. "You used the sound made from the bells to cast a second genjutsu on me to make me slowly lower my reaction time, didn't you?" Shikamaru stated, more than questioned. Once again not answering, Kin just turned around halfway to give a small smirk at him, figuring out her subtle tactic. It was at this point Naruto himself summed up all that just happened with one word: damn. Flashback and Arashi returns in the DeLorean. Well, that was interesting, raise your hand if you saw that coming. Back to the present, Naruto having just finished his recap of that match in the prelims to a stunned Jiraiya. To think she not only outsmarted Anara but followed up with a simple yet effective attack to keep him from getting another chance to fight back. She's a clever one. Stated the sage. Hearing a quick cough from behind them, teacher and student turned to realize that during their conversation, they forgot about the ARAI'(S6). Well, before we get any further off track, Jiraiya-sama, I still need to set up a work schedule with my newest apprentice. Stated Dustin. Understanding this, Jiraiya replied, well, if that's the case, let me give you a hand, since if he's gonna be not only training with me for the finals, but working under you, we'll need to come up with an easy to follow, but effective schedule, won't we? Nodding at that, Dustin had Jiraiya follow him to the front desk to work out an effective schedule for Naruto to use during the rest of the month. Before leaving with Jiraiya to the front desk, Dustin quickly turns to Tenten. Musume, could you take Naruto to the storage room and see if there's any weapons he might have an interest in using outside of his standard kunai and shuriken? Dustin asked. Sure, Two-san. Turning to Naruto, follow me to the back. Naruto will see if you have an interest in using something new for a change. Stated Tenten while leading the young Uzumaki away from the front of the shop. His curiosity piqued at the apparent insistence of Dustin and Tenten at him using a new weapon. Naruto decided to speak up on his thoughts. Why is me using something else? Then my kunai or shuriken seems so important to you and your Two-san, Tenten? Questioned Naruto. Quickly understanding his lack of knowledge on her family's trade, Tenten stated, it's usually customary and a sign of acceptance in both my family and in blacksmithing to bequeath to one that's going to learn under the master a weapon previously forged or owned by the master. Starting to understand the importance, Naruto continued following Tenten to the back of the building till they came to a sealed-off metal door. Naruto watched as Tenten took a kunai that she had grabbed from the front and lightly cut her hand to spread some of her blood on the door, only for a large and complex seal to appear, then turn from a dull red color to a soft green before once again fading from sight. What you just saw is a very strong blood seal a friend of my Two-san's placed on this door and around the whole room to keep people from trying to steal our more rare and treasured weapons. Asked Tenten when noticing the confused expression on Naruto's face. Pushing the door inward, she led Naruto into a massive collection of weapons of all shapes and sizes. Tenten turned to Naruto and started talking again. Alright, here is my family's prized armory. We only allow those who are close to my family or those who are special in some way in here and allow them to have only one weapon. You can take your time in here, but remember to only take one. Okay. She said with a very serious look on her face. Nodding at her request, Naruto slowly but surely looked around the massive collection, seeing if any weapon felt right in his hands. After searching for almost half an hour, Naruto came across an odd sword hanging in the back. What made it odd is that most he's seen had either a cord or cloth wrap on the hilt, but this one was different. It was a simple in appearance katana around 42 inches long from hilt to blade. A circular golden guard in the shape of a coiling dragon. But the most unique feature was the handle. As mentioned above, it wasn't either a cord or cloth wrap, but instead an ivory dragon with its mouth closed at the end of the hilt7. Feeling an odd pull with the katana, Naruto grabbed the handle and scabbard and drew the sword. The blade was amazing in its simple appearance, being a simple but very well polished steel that looked like it could slice with no trouble through the toughest armor. As he examined the blade, Tenten came to check and see if Naruto found anything. Upon seeing him holding the katana, she said, well, I guess you did find something after all, let me get a look at it. Hearing Tenten's speech slow, Naruto turned only to see her staring both shocked and amazed at him. Finally getting a little bit under control, she quickly asked, Naruto, did you just draw that blade from its sheath? Not fully understanding what's wrong, Naruto said with a confused expression, yeah, I did, why? What followed was a scream that made Naruto feel like it was Sakura he was talking to and not Tenten. Two-san, come here now. Only a second later did Dustin and Jiraiya come bursting into the armory, both looking around and acting as if they were about to be attacked. Seeing his daughter, he quickly ran to her to ask what was wrong, only for Tenten to point at Naruto. Dustin turning to Naruto only to gasp in shock at what he was seeing. Repeating the question Tenten asked earlier, Naruto, did you draw that sword? Once again Naruto repeated with a yes. As Dustin and Tenten started getting over their shock, Jiraiya decided to ask the question on his and his apprentice's mind. What's the matter, Dustin? What's so important about if Naruto drew the katana? Jiraiya, that katana has been in my family for 5 generations, found by my great-great-great-grandfather. In that time none in my family have ever been able to unsheath that blade. We even had others try, and still no one. Heck, I even had your former teammate Tsunade-sama give it a try. She used all her super strength and it didn't budge at all. Hearing his explanation, Jiraiya too looked at Naruto with a surprised look on his face. During all this Naruto still just stood there holding the katana in his right hand still drawn. Only to hear Kyuubi in his head say, "Kami damn kid, you sure are full of surprises, aren't you?" Naruto could only look at the katana he held in his hands and just wondered what other new surprises awaited him, with only one last thought coming to mind: this month isn't even over yet. Chapter end. Chapter 3. Final preparations, meetings new and old. Dustin's forge. After the silent moment about Naruto's new sword, things slowly went back to normal, well, as normal as a ninja village can be. We find Dustin and Jiraiya back near the front of the store going over their planned schedule about Naruto's training and work hours. Adding in that he'll need Kenjutsu training now to supplement his katana, they quickly rework the schedule, while Tenten gives Naruto a more detailed tour of the smithy. "Alright, I think we covered everything necessary for the rest of the month, and half Naruto's has before the finals," said Jiraiya. "Yeah, I believe so, we got pretty lucky that Sandaime-sama gave the Genins an extra month to train for the exams," stated Dustin while giving the schedule one more look over. Indeed, it would seem that because of the participants in the Chunin exam finals being quite diverse and many, it was decided, with some aid from the Fire Daimyo, that the finals would be pushed back one more month. This was mostly for several daimyos who were from further countries like Tsuchi and Mizu to be given the needed time to reach Konoha and give them time to make sure there was no disturbances in their countries during their time of absence. I think we got everything covered, let's get Naruto in here so he knows what's going on," said Dustin. Turning towards the back, Dustin yelled out, "Naruto, come up to the front. Me and Jiraiya have finished up your schedule up till the finals." Not a second later the two heard a quick "be right there" from Naruto. After a few seconds, Naruto and Tenten come out from the back of the shop. Looking expectantly at the two, Jiraiya speaks up, "Alright Gaki, as you know, you've got about 6 weeks to prepare for the finals. In that time me and Dustin have prepared your training schedule and working schedule. No, after working out the math, it's been proven that you won't be able to pay off for the armor in that time. So Dustin has worked out that, at least, you'll be able to pay for 2 gauntlets made of the different metals needed for your little project." Seeing Naruto about to object, Dustin quickly cut in, "Now that doesn't mean we can't make the rest, but it would take more time than the needed to build, so instead we'll focus on the rest after finals, okay?" Understanding what they were saying and hearing Kyuubi agreeing to the matter, Naruto nodded his head in acceptance. "No, here's your schedule for the next 6 weeks Gaki, look it over first before we go any further," stated Dustin while handing the paper over. Taking it in hand, Naruto looked it over. It read, "Mornings, 6 o'clock 6:30. Wake up and breakfast, 6:30 to 7 o'clock. Warm-up stretches, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Multiple exercise. Physical and chakra, 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Morning practice. Training with Jiraiya, 11 o'clock 11:30. Cool down exercise, afternoon, 11:30 to 12 o'clock. Lunch break, 12 o'clock 4 o'clock. Working at Dustin's shop, 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Practice in the forge." Also adds into physical training, night, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Dinner, 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Night practice. Training with Jiraiya, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Work on armor, 11 o'clock 6 o'clock. Shower and sleep. Schedule will change corresponding to days, stands for what will be done during morning and night practice, changes are shown below. Sunday, morning Taijutsu, night Jinjutsu. Monday, morning Kenjutsu, night Fuinjutsu. Tuesday, morning Taijutsu, night Ninjutsu. Wednesday, morning Kenjutsu, night Fuinjutsu. Thursday, morning Taijutsu, night Ninjutsu. Friday, morning Kenjutsu, night Fuinjutsu. Saturday, morning Taijutsu, night Jinjutsu. Note: mornings are for physical training, while nights are for chakra-related training. After reading through the list, Naruto developed a very noticeable sweat on his face. "This seems a bit full, don't ye think?" asked a very nervous Jinchuriki. "I mean, seriously, do they expect me to handle all of this for 6 weeks straight? Not to mention that there is almost no time to do anything," thought our blonde hero. Smirking a little at his slightly freaked out apprentice, Jiraiya says, "Don't worry too much Gaki. We already planned out that the 2nd, 4th and 6th Saturdays of the week will be your resting days." Dustin followed up with, "Yeah, not to mention when you're working at my shop, you'll only be doing minor labor tasks like sweeping, storage, checking up on deliveries, and so on. So not much, and there will be at no point, unless something comes up, that me, Tenten, or my wife won't be there for you to ask for help or work alongside, understood?" Realizing there will be no way to change it, Naruto quickly nodded his head. Seeing he understands how everything will be working out from now till the finals, Jiraiya decided to end things and send Naruto home for the day. "Alright Gaki, as it stands it's already pretty late in the day and both me and Dustin need to prepare things for the rest of the month and next month. So you can go get yourself something to eat, then head home, meet me at the same training grounds we were at today tomorrow, okay?" Getting a nod of his head, Jiraiya handed Naruto a few ryos to buy himself dinner, having seen he hasn't got much in his refrigerator earlier today, and sent him on his way. A few minutes later at Ichiraku's, we now find Naruto enjoying what will be his last bowl of ramen for several weeks, seeing as both Jiraiya and Kyuubi have threatened no training if he eats any from tomorrow to the day of the finals. Something we was still pissed off about, not that either Kyuubi or Jiraiya cared in the least. Well, no, everything's in place though. With me working at Dustin's I can now start building my armor, though with the amount of time I'll actually have to build it, I don't think I'll be able to finish much at all. Were Naruto's thoughts on his current situation about his training schedule. That may be true, kid, but it'd be best if we just stick to building one piece, then finish the rest after the exams. My suggestion is working on your dominant arm gauntlet, alright, said Kyuubi. Hearing his tenant's opinion, he was quick to agree since it made the most sense to him at this point. As he sat there eating his ramen, a question came to mind about Kyuubi. By the way, Kyuubi, why is it that you've been so helpful? I mean, after all this time I kinda expected you to be angry and planning ways to either escape or eat me or both actually. He thought. Hearing his comments, Kyuubi was quick to sweat drop at the last words. Well, to be honest, kid, the ideas did come to mind early on in my imprisonment, but to be honest, after all this time, I figured that if violence and anger didn't get me anywhere, I figured why not try to do things a little bit differently, so I decided when we'd finally meet face to face, I'd at least give us a chance to get along like partners. Hearing Kyuubi's words, Naruto started to realize that while he was cursed to be alone for much of his life, Kyuubi didn't have it much better being trapped for Kami knows how long within his body. I see. Well, if that's the case, then I'm glad we can agree to a partnership and work together like this. Kami knows if there's one thing OG-san has been telling me forever is to always give everyone a second chance. And if the villagers deserve one for all they've done to me, I'd be no better than them if I didn't give you the same chance, right? Our blonde Jinchuriki thought with a smile. Quickly trying to keep his composure, Kyuubi said back while giving his own foxy smile, although far scarier. Yeah, I guess that's true, huh? However, this moment would be unknowingly broken by a yell of Naruto. Jumping a little in his seat, Naruto turned to see Am looking him in the with a bit of a worried look on her face. Seeing the look, Naruto quickly said, "Sorry Am Nichan, were you saying something?" In his mind, Kyuubi quickly face-pawed while muttering under his breath, "Baka." Looking at Naruto with a mixture of slight annoyance and worry, she decides to get him back on track. "I asked, do you want another bowl? So do you?" Noticing his empty bowl in front of him, he decided, with a lot of mental struggling, "No thanks." Noticing his slightly forced smile, Am decided to call him out on it. "Your voice may say that, but that fake smile says otherwise. Naruto, are you okay?" Deciding it wouldn't hurt anyone if he told her of his training for the finals and how his sensei forbid him from eating any more ramen till the day before the exam finals. "I see, well that's a little depressing. It will be too quiet around here while you're training," Am said with no lack of sadness in her voice. Seeing her sad face and knowing he couldn't leave her like that, he quickly added, "Even so, that won't stop me from coming by and saying hi at least." Seeing her cheer up a little at that, he quickly smiled back, this time for real. However, after noticing the time over the counter, Naruto realized he need to head home, so with a quick hug goodbye, he quickly ran home to get some sleep before he started training tomorrow, knowing he was gonna need it. -3 weeks later at Dustin's. The last few weeks were very productive. Naruto learned a lot about Jinjutsu, Ninjutsu, Taijutsu, Smiting, Kinjutsu, and Fuinjutsu, and it was pure hell. He never felt this tired in his life. From sun up to sundown he was worked to the bone by Jiraiya, Kyuubi, and Dustin. Every day he worked through numerous stretches, exercises, both bodily and chakra, different fighting stances and several clone sparring, both of himself and Jiraiya. Along with all of that, Jiraiya had him studying seals and reading up on several Fuinjutsu scrolls alongside ones for a select couple of ninjutsu scrolls. That was another thing Jiraiya did when he started his ninjutsu training, he taught him his chakra element, or should I say elements. He still remembered Jiraiya's face, now that is something he won't be forgetting anytime soon. Flashback 2 weeks ago to the DeLorean, we find Naruto and Jiraiya currently resting under a tree in the training field, watching several Naruto clones and a few Jiraiya clones working on multiple subjects around them. Having just finished his taijutsu training at the moment, Naruto decided to ask Jiraiya a question that was bugging him for a while. Turning to the perverted sage, he quickly asked, "Hey Iro-sensei, when are you gonna teach me any jutsu like shooting fireballs or making giant water dragons?" Let it be known that even with all that's happened in the last few days, Naruto will still be Naruto. Looking over at his apprentice with a slightly annoyed look on his face, he decided since he would be heading off to Dustin soon, he might as well teach the Gaki about elemental chakra. Getting into what Naruto dubbed lecture mode, Jiraiya started his brief lesson. "Alright, first thing you need to know, Gaki, is that every person has an element in their chakra network. By that I mean they are naturally attuned to a specific element. Before you ask, the elements are listed as the main 5 chakras. In most cases, this is because there are 5 main chakra elements. They are as followed: fire, wind, lightning, earth, and water. Each element is stronger than the one after it and weaker to the one before it, namely saying. Fire beats wind but loses to water, wind beats lightning but loses to fire, then comes lightning to earth and wind, then earth to water and lightning, and finally water to earth and fire. So if I had the water element my jutsu would beat Sasuke team's fire jutsu, right? Asked Naruto with a question looked. Exactly, but that also means you would be beaten by someone with an earth element. And that's mostly if you're fighting using only your elements. As I've been told you've also fought someone with a second tier element too, right? Jiraiya asked. Seeing Naruto's slightly confused expression, Jiraiya quickly mentioned, what I mean is someone with an element that is composed of 2 of the main 5 gaki. Oh, you mean Haku-chan, right? Naruto asked, realizing who Jiraiya was talking about. Exactly, she has what's called a second tier element. Which is when 2 of the other 5 are combined to make a new element. Examples would include the Shodame's Mokuton, which is earth and water, while your friend Haku's is Hyuton, a fusion of water and wind. Jiraiya stated. Seeing Naruto was still with him, he continued, there is also a 3rd tier, but as of this moment the only user of such an element is the Sandame, and formerly the Nidame Tsuchikage, which is the dust element. And I don't know for sure what elements make it up, most likely earth, wind and possibly a 3rd element. So how would we go about learning about my element? And for that matter, how is your element chosen, is it random or something? Asked Naruto. Well, finding out what it is the easy part, but first I'll answer your second question. As it stands, there are several ways that influence what one's element is. 3. The first is if you're from a clan, usually every clan has an element closely connected to their bloodline or family. 4. Another method is your parentage 5. Next is from as your bloodline has to do with it, like Haku's Hyoton 6. Also there's a very good theory that's influenced by one's birthplace 7. And finally there are unique cases where a person develops an element from certain factors 8, stated Jiraiya. Thinking on the last one, Naruto asks in a low voice, you mean like being a Jinchuriki, right? Seeing the slightly sad expression on his face, Jiraiya just nodded. Trying to get off the subject and lighten things a bit, Toad Sage quickly gets back on track. Anyway, how these factors lead to one's element is through the following. For the clan case, the Uchiha is a good example. They are naturally attuned to the fire element, that's why by graduation your teammate already knew at least one. In the case of parents, that usually has to do with if say your mother was a water nature, then there's a good chance you would inherit the same element. I already explained Haku's case, so we'll skip that one. The one on birthplace usually implies that you would gain an element from living in a specific area, in our case the most likely element that comes in Konoha is fire. Finally, like I mentioned, those of unique situations, not just Jinchuriki, can gain a different element. Taking a quick breather, Jiraiya drew out of a pocket in his pants 2 small slips of blank paper. After handing one to Naruto, Jiraiya started up again. Now how one learns what their element is the easy part. What we use is this unique paper. It's created from trees that are fed chakra during their growth process. Then all that one needs to do is push a little of their chakra into the paper and bam, that's it. I'll show you to fully understand. Holding up his paper, Jiraiya pushed a little of his chakra into it. What happened next surprised Naruto a bit. The paper started crumbling up really quickly, and as the bits hit the ground, burned up into a small pile of ash. What you just saw is how one's chakra element is shown. In my case it's earth and fire. My main element is earth followed by fire. Each element has its own response via the chakra paper. Earth crumbles to bits, fire burns the paper up, water soaks the paper, lightning crinkles it up, and wind cuts it in half. No, you try. Hearing the go-ahead, Naruto holds up his paper and pumps in a little chakra. What happens next surprised both shinobi. Naruto's paper not only cut in half, showing his main element to be wind, but cut into pieces, followed by the same pieces burning into ash. What made the last part shocking is that it burned up near instantly after the first cut. Not understanding what happened fully, Naruto turned to Jiraiya, only to see him in a corner kneeling over in depression. How's it possible? Not even I had 2 elements at his age. Or one that strong. It's not fair. Said a depressed sage. Still a little confused, Naruto only looked on while scratching the back of his head. Flashback end. After Jiraiya got a hold of himself, he went on to explain that the reactions he got from the paper meant his affinities were not only for wind and fire, but that his affinities were far stronger than anyone his age should have. From then on, Jiraiya focused on training him in his fire element, since it was the one he already mastered himself. He knew the training for wind, but only had Naruto focus on that a little, figuring he could train in that element after the exams when he has more time. Heading back to the present, Naruto looked down at his current project. His armored gauntlet. It was already late in the night, but he was already getting near the completion of the glove part. After he finishes this part, he can focus on the wrist part, then all that's left is the arm and connecting all 3 pieces. Once that's down, Kyuubi's plan is to infuse the armor with a large combination of seals. The list of ones needed were for the following needs. Weight and gravity seals for training purposes, chakra storage seals to handle both his and Kyuubi's chakra, absorption seals like the Kamen, this one taking a lot of time to complete, growth seals to have the armor handle his body growth in both height and muscle mass, and finally sealing well seals, so as to seal the armor pieces on his person9. The list also included a few unique seals that would be his special surprise for everyone come his match with Neji. Seeing he's nearly done, he gets back to work. A few minutes before 11 p.m., Naruto steps back with a sigh of both exhaustion and relief. After what felt like forever to him, he'd finally finished the right-hand armor. A sense of pride filled him at looking at his first piece. He'd built the whole thing on his own, with only a minor case of help by Tenten. Good job, Gaki, I can see that you've really got the hang of this. It's nearly 11, so why don't you clean yourself up and head on upstairs to rest? I can clean up here and put everything away. You deserve the rest. Turning around, Naruto looks to see Dustin having walked in while he was looking over the armored glove. Resting a hand on his shoulder, he slowly led Naruto out of the forge and called over Tenten. Seeing him about to protest, Dustin quickly silenced him with a hand on the head. No, I won't be hearing any complaints. You've been working non-stop for 3 weeks, I think this once I'll let you clock out a little early, alright. Seeing he wasn't gonna argue, Naruto followed Tenten to the second floor to get washed up and rest in the guest room. This had become a bit of a habit of Naruto since he started working on the armor. He'd work so hard and lose track of time, only to be far too tired by the time he's done to be able to walk home. So Hitomi, Tenten's Kasan, started all but forcing Naruto to staying in their guest room when he proved he couldn't walk more than a few feet before nearly falling down out of exhaustion. After he watching his apprentice walk upstairs with the aid of Tenten, he turned to take a look at the starting of Naruto's armor project. He couldn't help but question why it was so simple and basic in design. It looked very standard and plain. After looking at it for a moment, he decided to let it be. He would always learn about it later at the exams when Naruto faced Neji. Taking a quick look around of his forge, he noticed it wasn't that messy as he thought and decided to clean it up tomorrow. -3 weeks from finals. We now find Naruto sweeping up Dustin's shop. Having finished his training for the day with some more Fuinjutsu training later tonight, he was just finished his last job before heading upstairs to eat. That was another thing that's changed since he met Tenten's mom. She'd made it a point to have him join her, Dustin and Tenten every night for dinner before heading out to train and then to working in the forge. The woman was very persuasive. It seemed though he would have to wait a little bit longer, since just a few minutes before the store was to close, one last customer decided to show up. We're about to close, so unless you only need a few items you'll have to stop by tomorrow, Naruto said while having his back turned. However, the voice to answer him was probably the last one he expected. Well, luckily I only need to get a few things anyways. Naruto turned to see none other than Tsuchi-kin, one of the opponents. Jiraiya warned Naruto to take very seriously should he fight her in the finals. As Naruto turned to look at her, Kin seemed to not recognize him and was more busy looking at several different sized senbon on display. Quickly getting a hold of himself, he headed over to the front desk to grab the price list Tenten got for him in case such a situation, such as right now, were to happen. That being Naruto left alone in the shop with a customer. Finding the list under the cash register, Naruto came up to see Kin before him holding a few different pieces of equipment from the DISPLAYS-10. For a second nothing came out of her mouth, only to drop everything on the desk to step back and point at Naruto. This was quickly followed with a shout of "You" from Kin. Deciding to be a bit of a smartass for once, Naruto replied in a deadpan voice, "Yes, me. No, are you planning to buy all this or stand and point at me till closing?" Realizing she's making a bit of a fool of herself, Kin quickly collected herself and said, yeah. I need 2 dozen of the heavier senbon and 4 dozen of the smaller size. I also need 25 kunai and 30 shuriken. Alongside that I'll need about 10 yards worth of ninja wire. Finally, new holsters for all 4 weapons. Seeing she was back on track, he checked everything over the list. Adding it all together, he replied, "Okay, altogether that comes to 7,085 ryo." Double checking his work, he quickly reached under the desk to grab the required pouches she asked for. He was once again interrupted by Akin's next question, "Why are you working here? Aren't you a shinobi of this village?" Looking at her as he placed the pouches on the table, Naruto answered, "Well, I am in the finals like you, I can't exactly go on missions right now. So I work here to get a little extra money during my breaks in training. Now are you gonna pay?" Realizing she hasn't done so, she quickly grabs her ryo from her pocket and counts out the required amount. Paying Naruto, he hands over the pouches and assorted weapons she purchased. Gathering her new equipment, she goes about storing everything away. Seeing her getting herself squared away and most likely to leave shortly, Naruto went back to sweeping up the floor so he can clock out and join Tenten and her parents for dinner soon. However, as he's finishing up, he looks to see Kin still there and looking at him. Noting her slightly apprehensive look, Naruto speaks up, "Is there something else I can do for you?" Deciding that since he asked and she can't seem to leave, she decides to ask the question she's been holding in since she walked in. "Why did you allow me to buy anything from here?" she asked. Not understanding her question, Naruto retorts, "Huh?" Seeing she wasn't being clear enough, she reiterates, "I mean, I'm from another village, and not only that, me and my team almost not only removed your team from the exams, but almost killed your teammates. Not to mention I beat one of your friends in the prelims. So why?" Betting what she was questioning about now, Naruto replies, "Well, for one, I was asleep during your attack on my team. Secondly, well, killing Sasuke and Sakura would have removed me from the exams. They are both very far from being true teammates, let alone friends. And finally, well, Shikamaru was in my graduating class and we did kinda hang out after school. We are hardly friends. 11. Understanding his words, she was still curious since he seemed a lot different from the loud-mouthed blonde from the earlier parts of the exams. Deciding to focus on it later, she gave a quick thank you and goodbye. Kin left the shop. Walking her out as she did so. Naruto quickly put away the broom and headed upstairs. As he did so, one last thought came to mind. That was weird. Day before the finals. It was nearly here, the Chunin exam finals. Daimos and cages from all over have come to Konoha to see either their country's prospective genins or future employees. Betting pools were already getting set up for those willing to bet on the upcoming fights. But that is not the focus right now. So let's head to said focus, shall we? We once again find ourselves watching Naruto at Ichiraku's. Once again diving headfirst into several dozen bowls of ramen. Having been denied any of the delicious noodles for over a month, Naruto was quick to enjoy every last drop as he gorged on his favorite dish. After finishing what seemed like his 50th bowl, he looked up to see not only AM and Tucci looking on, but his current eating companion Nai Yujito. Although this came on account of Yujito hearing of Ichiraku serving the best ramen in all of Hai no Kuni. Something she heard from Naruto in passing, in fact. Upon hearing this, she was intent on following him and checking this out for herself. He was in fact very much right. She had never tasted such good ramen anywhere in Rai no Kuni. This though wasn't the only factoid though, for when Naruto turned to have a look at the person that joined him, he saw something that surprised him so much he actually stopped eating mid-bowl. What was so shocking to our former orange-wearing ninja-12? Well, it might be the fact one Nai Yujito was looking at him while still eating her own ramen. But the truly shocking part to Naruto was that she was sitting next to a still rising pile of ramen bowls that was almost as high as his. AM herself couldn't believe there was someone who could put away ramen as quickly and easily as Naruto. Both Jinchuriki, unknowingly of the other, quickly noticing we're looking at each other, with food still hanging from their mouths. Speedily turned away while both blushed up a storm. AM actually thought both were making great imitations of tomatoes right then. After both finished their meals and paid, they ended up once again catching the other's eye. Trying to break the slightly awkward silence, Yujito said, "I guess I should thank you for mentioning this place earlier." A little surprised by her statement, Naruto asked, "You're welcome, though I don't remember actually talking to you." Realizing they never actually formally met, Yujito held out her hand while saying, "Oh right, I'm Yujito. I'm the only nin from Kumo that is in the finals. And I heard you talking of this place on the way here." Remembering her match from the prelims, he said, "Oh right, you beat Choji as the last match of the prelims." Said match was actually very embarrassing in regards to Choji as well as his sensei. After all, there's nothing to be really proud about when you get beaten in 2 moves, one of which you caused YOURSELF13. Not a very proud day for one Sarutobi Asuma either, seeing as his whole team lost their prelim matches. Remembering her less than impressive opponent and even less impressive win, being it was pretty easy. She turned back to Naruto and decided to switch conversation tracks. "Well anyway, thanks again. I'm a little surprised that there's someone else out there that eats ramen the same way I do." Agreeing with her, Naruto replies, "Yeah, the only people I know or have met that can eat almost as much as me are the Akamichi clan." Smiling at her fellow lover of ramen, Yujito was about to continue the conversation before hearing a loud call of Yujito. Both Jinchuriki turned to see a dark-skinned and pale-skinned girl running up to them. Upon closer inspection by Naruto, he notices the Kumo hit I8 on them, properly guessing that they are Yujito's teammates. Both were unfortunately not in the finals, the pale blonde having forced a double knockout with DUSO 14. While the redhead had to withdraw, having gained, in the Forest of Death, a very nasty hit to her arm that required surgery as soon as possible if she wished to keep it. "Finally found you, Yujito, we've been looking everywhere," stated the redhead with a great deal of annoyance. "I told you'd see most likely be at the nearest ramen stand, but did you listen?" "No," the large pale blonde girl said. Noticing the time, Yujito quickly turned to Naruto, "Sorry Naruto-san, but I must be going. It was nice talking to you." "That's fine, I have to be somewhere myself anyways." "It was nice talking to you. Good luck in the finals," replied Naruto with his trademarked foxy smile. With those words, Naruto headed off to Dustin's, needing to do some last-minute checks on his gauntlet and equipment. Not realizing said smile left a noticeable tint of red on one Yujito's cheeks. Good luck to you as well, Naruto-san. Hopefully we'll get the chance to face each other in the finals. Shouted back a smiling Yujito. Giving a wave over his shoulder, Naruto continued on. Turning to her teammates, she noticed their growing grins and piercing stares. What? He likes ramen like I do. Yujito answered with slight annoyance while trying to hide her slowly growing embarrassment. Dropping the conversation for later, the Kumo trio headed back to their hotel to meet up with both their sensei and the Reikage, who just earlier today arrived in Konoha. Back with Naruto. Well, that was interesting. Never imagined I'd meet anyone that could eat ramen the same way I do. Thought Naruto. There's something off about that girl kid. Though for the love of Kami, I can't figure it out. Stated the Kyuubi within Naruto's head. A little surprised by his words, Naruto asks, huh, what do you mean by odd, Kyu? Taking a moment to organize his thoughts, Kyuubi replied, it's more like there's something kind of familiar about her. But I can't think why. Stated the Kyuubi. Well, that can be something to think on later. The finals are tomorrow, and I intend to beat that arrogant Neji into the ground, and to do that I'm gonna need to focus. Said a very pissed Jinchuriki. True, not to mention we'll finally be able to fully test out the gauntlet. And what better target than that annoying Hyuga boy's face? Hahaha. Said Kyuubi with no hidden amount of maliciousness. Not at all minding of Kyuubi's dark laughter within his mind. Naruto himself imagined the same scenario in his own mind. All the while a small dark grin spread across his face. Yeah, soon you'll pay for what you did to Hinata Neji. Oh yes, very soon. Those seeing the expression on the genin's face were quick to keep their distance. Most thinking the boy was preparing to prank another innocent villager again. At this same moment a certain Hyuga felt a very uncomfortable chill run up his spine. Pushing the foreboding feeling aside, said Hyuga went on to prepare for his later matches. Believing that with fate on his side none would best him. Especially our favorite blonde hero. Oh, the bliss of the ignorant. Day of the exams. The day was finally here. And Naruto could hardly wait. Looking one last time at the clock in his room, he quickly grabbed his gear and headed out while having one last thing come to mind. I hope Hiro-sensei got everything in place. I intend to impress and show up Sasuke team. What better way than to make an entrance no one will forget for a very long time. With these last thoughts, Naruto gave himself a quick once-over and gunned it to the stadium. Get ready, Chunin exam finals, get ready for the coming storm. Chapter end. Chapter 4. Hard facts: a new power rises. Konoha Stadium, day of the Chunin exam finals. It was finally here, the Chunin exam finals. Daimos and village leaders from all around the elemental nations had come to see this biannual tournament to see which village had the best crop of genins to hire for their needs. Watching from his personal booth we find Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage himself, watching the crowds mill into their seats. Looking down at the ninja in the coming fights, he couldn't help but be a bit nervous on seeing no signs of Naruto. He wasn't concerned for Sasuke, seeing as since he knew that if he was with Kakashi, and knowing the Uchiha's love for being in the spotlight, would more than likely show up late and in a dramatic fashion. Pushing such thoughts aside, Hiruzen turned as he saw the first of his two visitors for this exam. Entering in was none other than the Yondaime Reikage himself. AA was a giant of a man, one could best describe as having muscles on his muscles. Standing behind the man were two unfamiliar ninja from Kumo, most likely his bodyguards, thought the title god of shinobi. The first was a woman of great beauty, dark-skinned, like most native to Rai no Kuni are, and ahem sizes that reminded the Hokage a bit of a certain female student of his. The other was a large man, not as large as the Reikage, but not too far behind, wearing shades and very oddly a special harness holding not one or two but 7 swords. Said shinobi was currently looking down at the arena floor at what Hiruzen could only guess was the Kumo Kunoichi below. Well, it's been a few years, but I see you still got some fire in you, old man, hahaha. Laughed a rather loud aide, deciding to take a return shot at his age from the younger Kage. Sarutobi replied, yes, the fire in me hasn't died off yet, Reikage-sama, at least not enough that I couldn't still send you back to Kumo in a less than happy mood. Smirking at the jab, the Reikage, deciding not to get into a pissing contest with the elder Kage yet, answered back, well anyways, I see we still are waiting on the Kazuki Uchiha. Figured he'd be here before me, Hokage-sama. Looking over to the giant man, Sarutobi said, yes, it seems he had a bit of trouble, it would seem. On another note, I don't believe I've seen these two before, who might your guards be? Before A could respond, the other man decided to cut him off, yo. I float like a butterfly and sting like a killer bee. Step back, fools, before the mighty Kurabi won. After his words, all was silent in the Kage booth till the Hokage started snickering, only to turn into outright laughter. The ha 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 ha. Quite an interesting young shinobi you have there, Reikage-sama. Said the Sandaime. Before he could bash in his brother's head, the Kumo Kunoichi stepped forward and said, I am Mabui Sandaime-sama, it is nice to meet you. Said Mabui, then finished with a small bow, while still keeping a serious expression on her face. Nodding at the young woman's politeness and respect, the Hokage replied, nice to meet you as well, Mabui-san. Her intro done, she returned to standing behind the Reikage, who after punching his brother into the floor, took his seat alongside the Hokage. Not a minute later they were joined by the Kazekage Sabaku no Kira-2. Said Kage made his way over to his fellows, as he went to sat down the Hokage welcomed him, "Ah, good to see you could make it Kazekage-sama. I hope the trip getting here through the deserts of Kase no Kuni didn't exhaust you too much." Turning to the Sandaime he replied, "No, I'm rather fine. I thank you for asking, though it's probably good that the exams were not held in Suna or one of the other 5 this year. I don't believe you could handle the trip too well, Hokage-sama, at your age. Maybe you should look into getting a Godame soon." "Haha, no need to worry on my account, Kazekage-sama. I'm still in good enough shape to handle this position. I think I could hold out for another few years," replied the Hokage. "I should be asking of your health though, Kira-sama. I figure after making it into High no Kuni you'd not need to keep wearing your face cloth 3, questioned Hiruzen. Cause indeed the Kazekage had left his mouth cloth on, even though High no Kuni has nowhere near the harsh winds of Kase no Kuni. "Oh, I apologize but I came down with a bit of a cough a few days ago." "No worries, I'm in no way contagious, I just figured for courtesy's sake I'd keep it on, just in case." Nodding at their fellow Kage's words, both dropped the subject, though if one noticed quickly enough they'd see the suspicious glance the Hokage sent the Kazekage. Turning to the ground below, Hiruzen noticed the continued lack of either the Uchiha and more importantly Naruto. Noticing this as well, both the Reikage and Kazekage voiced their opinions. "It would seem 2 of your shinobi are absent, Sarutobi-sama. One of which I believe is this great Uchiha I keep hearing about," voiced the Reikage with a big grin on his face. "I too was assuming the boy would be here, after all he is set to fight my youngest son after all," stated the Kazekage, while sending a side glance to the Hokage. "I apologize but unfortunately dear Sasu-kun was trained by Hada Kakashi over the 2-month-long period. It would seem he has picked up one of Kakashi-kun's less appropriate traits, his lateness," said the Hokage with some measure of annoyance. "As for the other shinobi missing, that would be Naruto-kun, and I have word from his sensei that he will be here on time. He just wants to make a bit of an entrance. I let it be on account of Naruto's love for being a bit of a show-off and wanted to grab attention," finished the Hokage. "Be that as it may, if they aren't here on time they should be disqualified for failing to show up. I damn well didn't come all the way here to not see the genin down below fight and rather show up when they feel they should," replied the Reikage with a small amount of anger. "You needed worry, Reikage-sama. Well, I can't be certain of Sasu-kun. I can assure you that Naruto would not allow himself to miss this for anything," stated a very serious Sandaime. "I'll hold you to that, Hiruzen, and for your village's sake you better be right. It not do your clients any good to have one of the ones they wanted to see not even show up on time," replied the Reikage. But that all being said, the 3 Kages turned back to looking at the prospective genin below. Arena floor. Down below we find the other finalists waiting for the exams to begin. Not a minute later they are joined by a Konoha Jounin chewing on a senbon. Said Jounin quickly calls their attention from the stands. "Alright, look sharp, all eyes are on you guys today, so try not to embarrass your village. Just so you know, I'm Genma and I'll be your referee for the finals, same rules as before, what I say goes. Keep going after I say it's done and you'll be disqualified, got it?" All the gathered genin nodded their heads at his stern words. However, before more could be said, Kin, noticing Naruto and the Uchiha's lack of presence, voiced out, "Hey, what will happen if Naruto and the Uchiha aren't here in time for their matches?" "Then they are disqualified," replied Genma. Nodding her head at this, Kin could only think that Baka better show up, I still owe him one after all. Arena stands. As for those who didn't make it to the finals, we see the now titled Rookie 12 sitting amongst each other and their group senseis. With the exception of Rock Lee, Mito Guy, and Hada Kakashi, that is, Lee being escorted to the arena by Guy, while Kakashi is busy doing what he has come to be known for more often than with his fighting skills being late. Besides the mentioned trio not present, others were sitting amongst the rookies and their teachers, the likes of which included Mitarashi Anko, Yumi no Iruka, Kiba's mother and older sister Tsume and Hana, and finally Tenten's parents Dustin and Hitomi. Ironically enough, unknown to most but a small few, all aforementioned people had actually come for a sole reason of seeing a certain Uzumaki's performance in the exams. In Anko's case it was twofold. On one hand it was to see the titled dope kick the hell out of the titled genius of the Hyuga clan, on the other it was for her hopes in that through his win, she'd make an absolute killing via the given chances he has from the betting pools. After all, 100 to 1 odds on his lose means her win could not only put a lot of people on tighter budgets, but her income would be astronomical in most comparisons. For Iruka, his was mostly an invested interest on how far those from his last graduated genin's class got in their careers. Most important of all to them being Naruto himself, it also helped that in his own beliefs, that regardless of what others may say, he knew if nothing else Naruto would beat Neji. But that personal belief, he put his last 4 paychecks worth of Ryo on Naruto winning against a Hyuga genius. In the Inyazuka's case, it was more to see the pup that beat Kiba than anything else, though once again money was placed on his beating Neji, in this case by Hana without the knowledge of her mother. After all, it's not exactly a good idea to tell your mother you bet half your yearly salary on a single match in the exams, especially one that had very low odds. Finally there was the Arise Dustin and his wife Hitomi. Both like the mentioned others here mostly to cheer for Naruto. Although Dustin himself having another reason, that being to his vested interest in Naruto's secret project. One that he has no problem admitting has had him curious every day since Naruto walked into his shop. He was deeply looking forward to seeing the first completed piece today. He only hoped whatever Naruto planned to do to it to make it into what he claimed wasn't a waste of the rare metal used to make it. Mind you, things were hardly from being quiet, especially with a certain harpy Kunoichi in the Audience4. Although most genin were confused when Iruka showed up earlier. Kurenai even asking how he's here since he has class at this time. Quick explanation being to seeing his former students while asking for a sub to take his place for just today. Anko's reason was more to watch Naruto, though she kept that to herself, and because Kurenai asked her to join her. The Inyazukas came to watch, since it was necessary for Tsume being clan head and all to watch the possible future Chuninins, to help in the decisions later on who gets promoted. The Arise were there for personal reasons and stated nothing more, with only Tenten being any of the wiser on that matter. Noticing the blonde Gaki's absence, Anko was quick to voice it. Figured the orange Gaki be here by now. Hell, I even expected him here early if for the simple fact he was really intent on shoving a kunai up the Hyuga's ass from what he did in the prelims. Nodding more at her friend's statement than her crass words, Kurenai was quick to follow up. Yes, I was expecting the same. Hopefully he hasn't picked up his sensei's lack of respect when it comes to showing up on time. Hearing both women's words, Hitomi turned to them and answered what was on most people's minds. I wouldn't worry too much, Anko-san, Kurenai-san. Naruto is here, he just wanted to take care of some personal business first before making his entrance. Noticing most everyone in their section looking at her with questioned looks, Ino decided to voice her confusion at the former's statement. Not to be rude, but who are you two? And how do you know Naruto? The inner gossip in her demanding to know their connection to her former classmate. Speaking for her parents, Tenten says, oh, they're my parents, you guys. They, alongside myself at times, run the Arise smithy. As for how they know Naruto is because he's been working at our shop during his breaks from training over the last 6 weeks. A little shocked at this bit of knowledge, Sakura was the quick to reply, but how can that be? Naruto Baka doesn't know anything about smithing or running a shop. Feeling the need to defend her newest friend, Tenten answered back, of course he didn't, but that's why we taught him how. He learned it over the month and a half when not training and has become pretty good at it, to be honest. Even more shocked than before, Kurenai was however the next to ask, I find it a bit odd that Naruto-san would be interested in smithing, especially since it's a job that requires a lot of patience and focus. Something that, from what I've seen, he lacks a lot of. That may be true, but how much do you know of Naruto-kun yourself, Kurenai-san, or any of you, to be honest? Have any of you personally asked him of his interests outside of his love for ramen and wanting to be Hokage 5? Asked Hitomi with a well-hidden sly smile on her face. Many, realizing that they indeed didn't know much about him, stopped any responses or questions for that matter from being voiced. Noticing the end of their questions, for the time being, Dustin and his family went back to watching the field below to wait in patience for Naruto entrance. After all, if they learned one thing about Naruto for all the time he spent with the Arise is that he likes to do things in a unique and at sometimes unorthodox way. They would realize how right they are very soon. Page's box. Well, I believe everything is good and we can begin, said Sarutobi. Standing from his chair, the Sandane walked forward to address the audience. Performing a quick voice-enhancing jutsu, since at his age he wouldn't be able to naturally raise his voice, he spoke, thank you all for coming to the biannual Chunin exams. We hope those that have come will enjoy the performances of the coming matches. But that being said, may the Chunin exam finals begin. With his piece said, Sarutobi hears and returned to his seat. Just before any more could be said amongst the cages, a voice cut in from the doorway. Well, I see I'm not late, and entered one Jiraiya the Gama-sanin. Seeing his former student present, he quickly said, Jiraiya-kun, I'm glad you could make it. Nodding at his sensei, Jiraiya turned to the two visiting cages. Nice to see you to sensei, and to you as well, Kazuki-sama, Reikage-sama. Before either cage could voice a comment on the Toad Sage's appearance, from below they heard Genma's voice shout out, would Uzumaki Naruto please come down to the arena floor, you have 5 minutes before being disqualified. Noticing his sensei's worried look, Jiraiya quickly grabbed his attention. Don't worry, Sensei, Naruto will be here. He just wanted to try something out beforehand. And before you ask, no, I don't know what it is. Most likely some unique entrance. Nodding at his student's words, Sarutobi turned to look at the arena floor. Arena floor, a few minutes earlier. Hearing the Sandame's words, Genma called to attention the genin present. Alright everyone, here's one last look at the matches. Get a good look, cause this is the last time before we begin. Pulling forth the same chart used after the prelims, Genma showed the current match listings. Block A. Match 1 Hyuga Neji vs Uzumaki Naruto. Match 2 Sabaku no Kankuro vs Aburam Shino. Block B. Match 1 Sabaku no Tamari vs Tsuchi Kin. Match 2 Sabaku no Gara vs Uchiha Sasuke. Yujito will face the winner of match 1 in Block A. Looking the match listings one last time, Genma then took down the paper and put it away. Following this action, he spoke up for the crowd and participants. With the exclusion of Hyuga Neji and Uzumaki Naruto, would the other competitors return to the fighters box up above so that we can begin the first match of the day? Hearing his request, all but Genma and Neji went up the stairs leading to the stands, leaving only the two to wait for Naruto to show up. After waiting for a few seconds, Genma shouted out, "Would Uzumaki Naruto please come to the arena for your scheduled match?" Looking around and still not seeing him, Genma spoke up once more, "If Naruto does not show up in the next 5 minutes, he will be disqualified." Hearing this, Neji had his own thoughts on the matter, so it seems fate is right. "As for all your brave words, you don't have the courage to show up on time to face me, Uzumaki." As time wore down, the crowd became restless and started yelling. The few that came to see Naruto started to worry for him taking so long. It finally came to a head when Genma shouted out for one last time, "It seems Uzumaki Naruto has no showed." With that in mind, Hyuga Neji via disqualification is the boom. Before more could be said, a large explosion went off near the other entrance to the arena floor. Following the explosion, a loud din of music came through the PA system to break the brief silence. Play Goldberg's second WCW theme music. Just as the music started picking up, smoke started billowing out of the entrance. Soon as the smoke started to fade, one could just make out a figure in the smoke clouds. With a quick gust of wind, the smoke started blowing away. From the shadows of the clouds, a figure could be seen. Not much could be gleaned from their appearance, since small streams of fire soon shot around the hidden person. As the fire continued to spew around the man, as his figure clearly showed his gender at this point, he started to slowly march through the fire itself. As the man came into view, without a single burn or hint of fire on his clothes, many soon recognized the man to be none other than Uzumaki Naruto. However, this was not the same Naruto most present knew of. Instead, before them was a warrior, a man who could easily be seen to be here for one reason alone. Not for a promotion, not for a chance to prove Konoha more superior than Sun or Kumo, or even to show off his skills. No, this Naruto was here for one thing and one thing only, to beat the holy hell out of Neji and make him pay for his actions to Hinata. Nothing more, nothing less. But what gave this impression to those who knew even a small fraction of Naruto's attitude and mindset? Well, some saw it in his eyes, but most saw it in his new look. Gone was the trademark orange jumpsuit of Team 7's Uzumaki Naruto, and what now stood was the Naruto trained by Jiraiya of the Sannin, and secretly the Kyuubi no Kitsune. First, in replace of his standard shinobi sandals, wear jet black BOOTS6, with red lining going all over THEM6, gone was his overly bright orange pants, and in their place was black guy PANTS7, a heavy utility belt held up his pants, one that would make Batman glare in envy. 3 small storage scrolls went down his right leg, while replacing his usual black shirt was a now padded blood red SHIRT9, and over this, instead of his Kulmi orange jacket, was a black leather jacket covered in unique white tribal-like designs. Unique they were in the case that they hid the fact all the designs were actually seals, dozens of seals. To finish his new getup, he had on both hands a pair of crimson fingerless gloves, each with a metal plate on the back and running across the knuckles. However, unlike most, he had 2 different symbols on them. The left had the symbol for whirlpool, while on his right the kanji for the number 9. As a last touch, he decided on something that even Jiraiya questioned him on, that being him wearing his headband instead of as a headband, but as a bandana like both Genma and Hate have it. This added factor was that it pushed his bangs over his eyebrows almost entirely, caused him to get a much different reaction from some girls that don't know him that well. You can lower the volume or stop the song altogether at this point, namely Kin, Tamari, Yujito, and surprisingly the likes of Hana, Anko, Kurenai, and Mabui. A shared thought among the first 3 was the following: since when was the midget blonde that hot? Luckily for them, everyone around them was too busy mesmerized by the blonde's entrance to notice the growing puddle of drool spreading at the young Kunoichi's feet. Back on the arena floor, Genma was the first to break the silence. "You do know you were just about to be disqualified, right?" Turning to look at the Jounin, Naruto replied, "I know. I was only doing that to see if my assumption was right." Seeing the questioning looks on both Genma and Neji, and particularly feeling them from most of the people up in the stands, Naruto followed up with, "My assumption being, if I was going to get any kind of extra time to arrive, which I didn't." Before any more could be said from Genma, Naruto continued with, "This was mostly to make a point, since I know Uchiha Sasuke would not be here at the required time. In fact, I personally believe he won't even be on time for his match and try to drag out as much time, even more than I did, to make a flashy entrance. I believe this because more than once have I seen this village cater to his whims. I just want to see if you'll do it here and now of all times with not just Konoha citizens present. Page's box. Hearing Naruto's words, Sarutobi could only look on with some measure of concern, mostly on account that he was looking right at him when he said the last part. He could only guess that any means to delay the Uchiha's match would raise more than one head and draw quite a lot of ire from the multiple daimos present. As if to prove his point, the Raikage said, "I really hope you didn't have any plans to do what this blonde gaki just said, Sarutobi. I for one don't have the patience for any of my ninja being tardy or downright late with no excuse." Turning to his fellow Kage, the Sandaime was quick to reply, "I can assure you, Raikage-sama, I have no intention on letting young Sasuke get away with being late to the exams. In fact, if he isn't on time I will disqualify him." Hearing these words, Kira asked, "I'm sure we can come to some kind of agreement, Sarutobi-sama. After all, many came here to see the Uchiha fight my son." Looking at the Kazekage, Sarutobi answered in kind, "Even so, our clients need to understand that when asked for a mission or assignment from a village, that the hired ninjas will do them on time and be punctual. Anything less will not put us in anyone's favor, not to mention we already have a bad light on us as is from young Naruto-kun's words alone." Hearing this and knowing that trying to put more pressure on the situation might give him away, the Kazekage just nodded and resumed looking down at the arena. Had he been looking over in Jiraiya and Sarutobi's direction, he'd have noticed a small moment of acknowledgement between them before turning to watch the upcoming match. Back on the battleground, seeing his piece done, Genma turned to both Genin. "Alright, first match of the Konoha Chunin exam finals. Hyuga Neji vs Uzumaki Naruto. Are both fighters ready?" Seeing both Genin giving the silent nod, Genma finally said, "Begin." Then came silence, neither Neji or Naruto said or moved. After a few seconds both slowly entered their respective fighting stances. Neji in the Hyuga's signature Juken stance with his Byakugan active and Naruto in a simple martial arts opening stance. After not saying anything else, Neji decided to try doing to Naruto what he did to Hinata, weaken him mentally. "You should just quit now and save yourself the embarrassment. It's by fate's decree that I win this day. You who are nothing but a loser and the class dope cannot hope to beat me, the last year's rookie of the year and declared genius of the great Hyuga clan. So give up now before I destroy you like I did Hinata-sama." For a moment Naruto did nothing, his head hanging down. For a moment most thought he was about to throw in the towel until he started to shake. Soon one could hear laughing from the young Uzumaki. Till finally Naruto threw his head back and started to laugh even harder. The blonde Uzumaki continued to laugh for apparently no reason other than to laugh. However, Neji could neither find what was so funny or stand to see this class clown laugh for seemingly no reason. Having enough, Neji yelled, "What is so funny? Do you find your inevitable lose amusing?" Finally calming down, Naruto spoke, "I'm laughing because of what you just said. First, there's the fact you call your clan great. Last I checked, not only has there been to my knowledge any Hyuga in any real high noticeable position in this village like say as Hokage or Sannin, but also the fact your clan still uses traditions from before any village was created, making you very archaic. Then there's the fact you think fate is viewable by a mere mortal child like yourself. Ha. As if such a thing could ever be comprehended by someone like you. A branch member of the Hyuga clan." Seeing Neji's enraged face, Naruto was quick to continue, "Let's then take into account your statement of my class rank as opposed to yours. Personally speaking, I've thought on that for some time now. And realize I'd much rather be considered a dope and loser than a rookie of the year or clan prodigy. You know why? Because those in this village that hold the title rookie of the year aren't great people in most cases. Example number 1. Orochimaru, a clanless boy who is now S-class Nuke Nin and became so for experimenting on children, and many others from his own village to become immortal. That alone makes you think how great a ninja he was if he feared death so much that he would do anything possible to escape it. Dying is in the job description after all." Next we have Uchiha Itachi. Youngest student to graduate the academy and unlock his Sharingan, and yet at the age of 16 or so butchered his entire clan save his little brother. Then we have you and Sasuke, both rookie of the years, but with little to no social skills and even fewer friends. No wait, last I checked neither of you have any friends. Making a mocking face, Naruto quickly finished up, "Yeah, being rookie of the year and a prodigy is so great. At least me and Lee have people we can call friends and allies. Who do you and Sasuke have? I'll tell you have particularly no one, but a bunch of fangirls and askissers. More importantly, last I checked there is no Namikaze clan, so it comes to question how great being from a clan is, since both Hyuga Hiashi and Uchiha Fugaku, heads of their respective clans, both failed at becoming Hokage to a seemingly clanless blonde." Having enough of Naruto's words, Neji charged Naruto down at near full speed, completely enraged. "Silence." He shouted as he went for what many could notice was a killing blow on Naruto, only to fail. Yes, even at full speed, Hyuga Neji, rookie of the year and titled strongest genin in the leaf, missed hitting the title dope and class clown. Well, to be fair, he didn't actually miss, to be more precise he actually was blocked. Nearly everyone looked on with utter amazement and shock. Uzumaki Naruto, the claimed failure and loser, had caught Neji's fingers just mere inches from his heart. Using Neji's shock to his advantage, Naruto quickly pulled him in close and had Neji kiss his knee hard. Letting Neji go, Naruto stood stock still as Neji collected himself. Still surprised at what the supposed failure accomplished, Neji decided to calm himself before starting on the attack again. Seeing his opponent still standing still after their first clash, Neji took a moment to study his stance. Seeing no true fighting stance or visible taijutsu moves available in his enemy's position, Neji once again charged Naruto head-on. However, to his and everyone else's surprise, Naruto dodged every single strike sent his way. More importantly, and to Neji's own frustration, he was dodging in a way that seemed almost like he was not even trying. As if to drive this home more so than before, Naruto quickly followed up his last dodge by stepping into Neji's guard and grabbed both his arms during mid-attack. To add insult to injury, quite literally in this case, Naruto drove his knee for the second time into Neji's face once again quite hard. Releasing Neji again, but this time with a well-timed throw, Naruto stayed in his place while Neji nursed his now slightly bleeding nose. Breaking Neji from his slight disbelief at being struck a second time and having landed no blow of his own, Naruto spoke up again. Well, ain't this a surprise? The dope has struck you not once, but twice, and I've done so with no injuries of my own. Obviously your clan's vaunted Juken isn't as great as it seems, since you couldn't stop either hit. Enraged to the breaking point after that last comment, Neji tossed several kunai, followed by charging Naruto a third time. This time he was met with more success. Dodging all of the kunai was the easy part. Moving to dodge Neji's next barrage of Juken strikes was another story. A minor, but near fatal, mistake came in the form of Neji striking Naruto near his upper arm. This blow forced Naruto jump backwards to try and make some room for himself. Unfortunately, this was what Neji wanted. Entering a stance that confused some but shocked the ever-loving hell out of his uncle Hyuga Hiashi, Neji shouted Haki Rakujikin SHM. Striking with more speed than before shown, Neji followed his call with 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 64 palms. Following each yell, Naruto received every strike, only barely maneuvering himself away from the more deadlier hits 10. Backing away slightly, Neji looked on as his adversary fell backwards a few feet from the combined blows. Putting an arrogant smirk on his face, Neji proceeded to mock his assumed defeated foe. Do you see now? You are garbage and a loser, just like Hinata-sama. You will never be able to compete with the likes of me or those chosen by fate to rule over those that aren't. Turning to the Senbon chewing Jounin, Neji said, call the match. Genma-san, he isn't getting back up. As he said this, he turned to go back up the steps to the contestants' booth. Sadly for Neji, he forgot one thing: don't make assumptions. Cause they have a tendency to make an ass out of you and me. In this case it's just Neji though. Only to hear that annoying voice speaks back, hey. Where the hell do you think you're going? Slightly surprised, Neji turned back to see Naruto slowly but surely standing back on his feet. If you think for one damn second that we are done here, then you are damn wrong. Annoyed by his opponent's refusal to back down, Neji exclaimed, why wouldn't you just give up? I've closed all of your most needed and important chakra points, not to mention shut them down. You have no means of using your chakra anymore. So why do you still stand? Because unlike you who would rather roll over and accept your lot in life, I fight to change and control mine. Shouted back Naruto. Giving Neji his best stare down, he quickly cut him off from saying any more. I still owe you for what you did to Hinata after all. Hearing his reason, Neji was quick to reply, do you even know why I did that to her? Cutting Neji off again, Naruto yelled, no I don't. But knowing you, it's a stupid and piss poor excuse to nearly kill her. Sick of the Uzumaki's words, Neji decided to air his issues and the Hyuga's dirty laundry to the crowd. Telling Naruto of the failed Kumo kidnapping of Hinata at age 3. And how to protect the Byakugan and keep from starting another war, they sacrificed his father, Hiashi's twin brother Hisashi, in Hiashi's place. Hearing Neji's side of the story, Naruto decided to give his opinion. You are one of the dumbest SOBs I've ever met. You blame Hinata, of all people, on something that she had no means of causing or stopping. She was 3. How the hell would a 3-year-old handle a fully trained and experienced Jounin? Shouted Naruto. Scowling at his logic being questioned by Naruto again, Neji decided to end this, since you won't back down then I shall put you down. Charging one last time to finally end this battle, Neji didn't notice, until it was too late, Naruto's smirk. He just barely caught him saying, fool, before he released a massive chakra wave. Said wave sent Neji flying backwards a couple of feet, only to look back at Naruto and see him hold his right hand in a fist in front of his face. Thanks for giving me the extra time to do this, Neji, time to show the world my newest power. Play Kageaki from Kamen Rider Hibiki. Focusing what small amount of Kyuubi's chakra he could grasp, Naruto coated his right fist in it, causing the kanji for fire to glow on the back of it. Soon his entire right fist was covered in crimson like flames. Bringing his down, Naruto called out, "Yokoichi." Many from Konoha hearing this call started to panic, thinking that the demon was going to call forth his power. Thankfully none voiced these thoughts, too surprised at his actions up to this point. Those that knew of Naruto's personal project going into the finals edged closer to finally see the gauntlet he built over the 6 weeks. Back to Naruto. At his call, flames grew to encase his entire right arm from the tips of his fingers to his elbow. Lifting his arm back up till it was, from elbow to fingers pointing straight into the sky, Naruto finally gave one more yell and swiped his arm downwards in a chopping motion. Said action dispersed the flames over his arm to reveal his arm now covered in armor. From aforementioned finger to elbow, his entire arm was armored in a red armor. All 5 fingers were clawed in a blood-red metal, his hand and forearm were encased in a more standard red-colored steel, 3 spikes jutted out from the sides of his forearm on each side. Around his elbow a large spike went for about a few inches over it. Right next to the elbow spike was 2 more slightly thinner and shorter spikes colored a light orange in a scissors-like position, with the elbow spike in between. Finally, on the back of his hand partially in the armor was a large deep blue orb. Said orb briefly flashed the kanji for "one" it before disappearing. 11. Holding out his new armored arm, Naruto turns to Neji, and much to Neji and every other Hyuga present, noticed that all of his chakra points were open. Stuck temporarily speechless, Naruto decided to introduce Neji and everyone to his newest toy. "Allow me to introduce you, Neji, to my new armor. It's not finished yet, but that's fine for now. The right gauntlet will be enough. Say hello to Kurama and goodbye to your last chance at victory, cause as of this moment." Naruto raises his gauntlet and waves in front of his face, "You can't see me." 12. Chapter end. Chapter 5. Kitsune's Trump Falcons. Everyone from the contestants, audience, and cages themselves looked on at the newest addition to this fight. While all had their own varied opinions on the gauntlet wielded by Naruto, none were more surprised than Kurabi, Gaara, and Yujito. To be more specific, their tenant surprise. "Would you stop that annoying rapping and listen to me?" was the very loud voice of one Hachibi named Jayuki. "What's wrong, Ado? Your yelling's giving me quite a bit of pain." "Oh," was the reply from his Jinchuriki. "Sigh, what's wrong?" "Well, not so much wrong, but important is that the blonde down there is one of us," he said. "So blonde down there is a container like Yugi-chan and me. Why didn't you bring this up to me before, Hachibi?" said a confused Kurabi. "I didn't mention it cause I couldn't feel his Bijuu's power till now. Not to mention the name for that gauntlet of his, Kurama, is in fact my brother's name. Namely the Kyuubi's name," said the Hachibi. At this news, Kurabi was a little shocked and surprised. Thankfully years of ninja training kept B1 from outwardly expressing this. "If that's the case, his summoning armor has little trick, like ink is ours?" Questioned by. "No, but I'm certain whatever it is can be based similar to the chakra cloak you and Yujito use when using mine and my sister's powers. I'm actually curious to what it is exactly. I feel very minor bits of my brother's power in the summoning and running through the gauntlet, but not as much one usually uses when using our power," stated Jayuki. Hearing this, Kurabi made a mental note to meet his fellow Jinchuriki later, possible after his match. In the fighters' stand, while Jayuki was getting through to Kurabi, both Shukaku and Matatabi were having more and less trouble with their respective containers. In the more case it be Gaara, Shukaku feeling a little bit paranoid and anxious seeing signs of his oldest sibling nearby. However, in Gaara's opinion, that just makes him want to fight Naruto even more, something Shukaku was less than enthusiastic about. As for our favorite Nico Pair2, Matatabi was having a more different conversation with her container as opposed to her brothers. "For the last time, Nibi, I'm not going to corner him after his match and seduce him," shouted, in her mind that is, a very irate Yujito. "Oh kitten, come now, there's no reason to not try to get to know that very interesting young man down there. And if he finds you interesting too, seducing doesn't seem like such a bad idea later on, does it?" was the words of a very insistent Nibi. Deciding arguing wasn't going to stop her from making more comments, Yujito just went back to watching the rest of the match. Although she agreed on one thing with Nibi, he was indeed hiding more under that stupid jumpsuit. "I'm just surprised he was hiding so much," were her less than clean thoughts. Back with our combatants, if one was to describe Hyuga Neji, one would call him such things as intelligent, a prodigy, the pride of the Hyuga clan, and other such accolades, and those would be from both his clan and those that like to kiss one's ass. If you were to ask that same question to those that meet him on a day-to-day basis with a more neutral standpoint, you'd get such things as arrogant, self-absorbed, friendless, and an all-around jerk. Let it also be known that Neji has never been one to believe that he could be defeated by one he thought was beneath him. And yet for the first time Neji was uncontrollably facing those types of thoughts at this very moment. Namely, if he could actually defeat one Uzumaki Naruto at this point. Why would such thoughts be in the head of one so set in his ways of predetermined fate and such? Well, it could be that Naruto is unpredictable, it could be that he isn't the type to stay down for long, or it just might be the undeniable fact that our former orange-wearing hero just took his best trump card in finishing move and is still standing. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, one Uzumaki Naruto just took the Hyuga's famed 64 palms technique and was not only able to return to his feet but also reopen all of his formerly closed chakra points. It can be understandable at this point as to why Neji would be stunned silent from such an action. Using Neji's current state of being stunned, Naruto decided to do a quick rundown on his finished creation. Everything seems to be fine, no tightness to speak of anywhere under the armor. Nor do I feel any pain from the flames or your chakra, Kurama, thought Naruto. Yes, it would seem our hopes and faith wasn't misplaced in either Jiraiya or Dustin. Both have helped to create this, personally speaking, incredible piece of art, replied the Kyuubi. Art? Didn't take you for someone to call a piece of metal or a weapon art, Naruto thought. Just because I enjoy a good deal of destruction and such doesn't mean I can't appreciate something that has that sense of carnage or power to it. Especially something that I had a hand in creating, said Kurama in a bit of a boastful tone. Right, well anyway, everything seems 100% here and it seems like Neji is coming back to the world of the living. So as we promised, keep all comments and such to yourself till the battle is done, okay? Asked Naruto. Right, just don't lose, replied Kurama. Seeing Naruto return focus onto Neji, Kyuubi thought back on Naruto's little request before the match started. Flashback, before Naruto's entrance. Listen, Kurama, when the battle starts I want you to promise me under no circumstances to give me advice or comments at all during my match with Neji, okay? Asked Naruto. A little confused by his request, the Kyuubi asked back, and why should I not help you? Seeing as you're a ninja, it's kinda expected of you to want to use every advantage you have to beat your enemies. Regardless of my ninja status, I wanna try doing this by myself. I wanna prove I can beat him without having to be given an advantage like his bloodline gives him. I already get enough help from you and my family via the unique healing factor and your chakra. It's the major reason I wanted this armor made, so I didn't need to rely too much on your power all the time. A bit user for the gauntlet is enough, replied the blonde Uzumaki. Hearing him out, Kurama relented. Okay, I can understand where you're going with this, so I let it slide. However, don't think I won't help you when dealing with either Gaara or Yujito. Especially since I can tell they are far more comfortable with using their respective Bijuu's chakra than you are. Internally nodding his head at this, Naruto said one last thing before setting off his entrance pyro and music, I wouldn't have it any other way. Besides, part of the reason we created this armor was to partially counter my fellow Jinchuriki in case they are less than friendly. Agreeing with that, Kurama kept any words left to himself when he heard, through Naruto, the referee start Naruto's final countdown. Flashback end. Finally regaining control of himself, Neji all but screamed, how is that possible? Deciding to mess with a so-called Hyuga prodigy, Naruto replied with a cheeky grin, do what? Knowing Naruto was being blatantly oblivious, but not having the mind to keep calm at this point, he shouted out again, how did you reopen your chakra paths? Smirking, Naruto only gave Neji this as an answer, it's a secret. Seeing this got the intended reaction from Neji, Naruto stood there still and decided to say one last thing to throw Neji over the edge again. Obviously your Hyuga pride never believed it to be possible, huh? Guess your clan ain't all it's cracked up to be after all. Once again hearing both his clan and, more importantly, at least in his own mind, himself being mocked for the umpteenth time, Neji lost whatever calm or control he had on his anger and charged Naruto again, intent on not just defeating him, but destroying him. Of course, Neji unfortunately forgot the phrase no plan survives first contact with the enemy, and with his only true plan being destroy Naruto, which isn't much of a plan to begin with, he was about to learn this the hard way. Neji's attack ended up allowing him to be the first to taste Naruto's new power via fist to the stomach. In Neji's rage-induced state, he aimed straight for Naruto's heart. Sadly for him, Naruto saw this quite easily, Neji not really bothering to hide his intentions at all. Seeing his attack coming, Naruto swiftly dodged to the opposing side of Neji's attack and, using the opening given to him, Naruto took his shot. Using the tried and true basics of a right hand straight into his opponent's stomach and abdominal region. As stated, Neji felt this new power quite painfully and felt the wind knocked out of him as well as possible damage to his ribs. Backing up a few steps while trying and slightly failing at regaining his breath, Naruto took the chance to turn things fully in his favor. Charging Neji down, Naruto began his offense with several punches, aiming at Neji's already bruised chestal region, Neji himself putting up as much of a defense he can muster, while still feeling the effects from Naruto's first blow. Audience seats. As of this moment in time, all those watching from Konoha could only watch in amazement and shock at seeing the supposed dead last and dope of the most recent graduation class from the Konoha Ninja Academy, fighting on equal if not better terms than the Hyuga prodigy and last year's Rookie of the Year. The Hyuga were silent, seeing not only Neji being bested, but their 64 palms technique being shown ineffective to Naruto's newest power. The clan head himself, Hiashi, could only look on with shock at this development. Not only has a branch member learned and nearly mastered a signature jutsu of the main branch, but Uzumaki has recovered and neutralized it with little effort. These were the thoughts of one Hyuga Hiashi as he watched this battle continue. Right next to him was the clan head's youngest daughter, Hyuga Hanabi, who was as well shocked at seeing one of the techniques she herself was shown and told about from her Tusan. She also recognized Naruto for being the boy her sister pined over. And while she herself was still quite young, she was starting to see what Hinata saw in him. Although one could view this more as a childish crush and nothing else, it does seem like something one should investigate on at a later point. 3. Elsewhere we see the rest of the rookie nine and their eyes look on as the battle continues, while his former classmates looked on with looks of disbelief and surprise. Their eyes look on with amazement and in Tenten's case starry-eyed expressions at Naruto's gauntlet. Ustin himself finally realized what Naruto had planned from the beginning, voiced his thoughts, so that's it. That's why he wanted the chakra conductive metal. Turning to her Tusan, Tenten spoke up, "What do you mean Tusan? Do you know what Naruto did? Cause last I recall the gauntlet he made at the forge looked nothing like that." Hearing her words, most that knew Naruto, in some fashion, were surprised to know he built it all on his own. Noticing his Musumi put him on the stop, he decided to continue for everyone else's sake, alongside training in the forge and in Taijutsu he also studied Fujutsu under Jiraiya-sama. Those that knew the Sannin stared wide-eyed at that, knowing that somehow the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki and the titled Deadlast got trained by him. In between forging segments of his gauntlet he would stop after the cooling process to apply multiple seals to it. He would do this for every segment after each is cooled down. Now seeing his finished product from my own eyes, I see exactly what they were for. To make an armor that adapts and changes to not only fit the wielder, but evolve with his chakra running through it. He basically made a gauntlet that only he can use and wield. 4. Staring even more shocked than before at what Naruto constructed, those that originally believed it only to be some fancy piece of armor Naruto bought were now starting to wonder what else it could do. Back to the battle. While all this was going on, Naruto and Neji were still in the thick of it. Having regained some of his strength back, Neji continued his assault on Naruto, only to fall short in that regard. As it seemed that not only did Kurama give him increased strength but also increased speed. As it stands, both were in a bit of a standoff, both throwing blow, Neji with his Juken strikes and Naruto with his fists, and neither really landing any blows. 5. So far from what most could see was Naruto getting at best glancing blows, while Neji kept hitting Kurama only, Naruto being clever enough to bring it up as a makeshift shield to block Neji's Juken attacks. After what felt like an hour, but was really only a few minutes at best, both jumped backwards to bring some space between them. Realizing he wasn't getting anywhere, Naruto decided to use one of the few jutsus Jiraiya taught him during the 6 weeks they trained. Knowing Neji could most likely dodge a long-range jutsu easily from this distance, Naruto went for a two-pronged attack. Flipping through the necessary hand seals, Naruto called out his first attack, Yomi Numa. With a quick slam of his hands to the ground, a small, but very thick, swamp surrounded Neji's feet. He was soon stuck in place with it coming up past his ankles. Jiraiya taught him this jutsu to use for capturing and trapping, however he was far from mastering or even perfecting it, so this was the best he could do in such a quick sequence. However, that was what the second jutsu was for. With a couple more hand seals, Naruto called for his second attack, Katen. Enden. At the call of the jutsu, a long stream of white-hot fire flew at Neji. Most seeing this were admittedly shocked to see Naruto using an actually elemental jutsu. In Neji's case, he was admittedly surprised as well, not believing a clanless nobody could use a jutsu like this so effectively. But realizing his current situation, Neji focused more on survival instead. Damn it, there's only one Judas that can get me out of this in time. Knowing he can't save his ultimate attack for later, he quickly starts pumping chakra from all his tenketsu and starts trying to spin through the heavy SWAMP6. After only a second of trying, he breaks free whilst calling his attack, Hakishim Katen. The titled rotation worked in Neji's favor, providing a powerful and effective defense from Naruto's flames. After his jutsu dispersed the flames, Neji managed to remove all of the swamp mud from his feet and jumped free. All those from the Hyuga clan, the cages, audience, and Naruto himself looked onwards with surprise at seeing Neji do what many recognized as a main branch jutsu for the second time. Realizing really quickly of how to get at Neji's beliefs again, Naruto quickly shouted to him, "Well, for someone declaring all this crap about fate, you sure are doing everything to sound more like a hypocrite than anything else." Hearing the words of his adversary and once again being angered by them, he shouted in kind, "What do you know about fate? It's an all-encompassing force that controls and manipulates all. And you have the gall to say you can see it better than I." Seeing Neji fall for his trap, Naruto decided to finally put the proverbial nail in Neji's coffin. "I dare, because you've already proven that fate doesn't exist. If it was true, then how in Kami's name would you, a branch member, be able to use not only the 64 palms but the main branch's Katen as well? Not only that, but if fate was real, then how did I just beat your 64 palms and already quite nearly beat you now? I'll tell you why, cause fate is nothing but a load of bullcrap and stuff that weaklings and people who need excuses for everything use to try to make themselves feel better. When all they really need is a nice whack you call. And guess what, Neji, it's time for me to wake you up. With a shout of Kage Bushin no Jutsu, Neji soon found himself facing a dozen Narutos. Oddly enough, none were wearing Kurama on their arms. This made it quite easy for Neji to find the real one. However, before he could use this to gain any kind of advantage, Naruto had all 12 clones charge Neji down after surrounding him. What came next was pretty expected of both, namely all of the Narutos making a dive at him only for Neji to use his Katen again to destroy them all. Neji quickly called out to Naruto, "See, the Katen is the ultimate defense, no matter what you throw at me, you'll never be able to break it or beat me." Were Neji's words, while having that I'm superior, then you smirk on his face. However, surprisingly enough, Naruto just stood there and took Neji's words with a very devious look on his face. Getting into a charging stance, Naruto declared out loud his next intentions. "You think your so-called ultimate defense is indeed just that, ultimate? Well, guess what, that little barrage of clones was just a test that proved effective, cause now I know I can break it. And I'll show you how, right now." Before Neji could counter his statement, Naruto began a fast charge towards Neji. Seeing him approach, Neji quickly entered into the Katen's beginning stance, watching and waiting for Naruto to enter his range. However, about halfway towards Neji, Naruto started to yell. No, yell isn't the right word, more like roared would be a better description for the noise. A loud battle roar. Play G Gundam's Burning Finger theme, and yes, the move is based on it. As Naruto closed in on Neji, all soon noticed a bright red glow coming from his gauntlet. As he got closer, Neji, could soon see that it wasn't a light so much as the gauntlet heating up. In fact, just before he began the Katen, Neji could actually feel the incredible heat coming off the piece of armor. Neji, seeing Naruto in range, called out another Katen. This time pumping far more chakra than the last two into it. Seeing Neji begin his move, Naruto jumped into the air while bringing his fist down at the very top of Neji's Katen. At the apex of his jump, Naruto called out, "Here's your wake-up call, Neji, Nenshu no Ken 5. At the call of his jutsu, Naruto's gauntleted fist crashed on top of Neji's Katen. There was a brief power struggle before things changed. Neji's Katen soon gained the better part of the struggle, being provided by it and being grounded. When it looked for a second like Neji was about to fling Naruto off and away, Naruto could be heard yelling out, "Kitsune Hiki Fox burst." But that shout, there was a bright red flash, followed by an intense explosion right afterwards. Music can be stopped at this point. A big dust cloud covered over where both ninja were at their brief but explosive clash. Not a second later, two different figures are launched out of the cloud. One went straight into the arena wall, while the other hit the ground while leaving a small trench for about 3 meters before stopping. Neither figure could be seen from the dust and smoke covering them for the longest of moments. However, soon the one on the ground could be seen slowly but surely rising to his feet. Finally, after getting up to his feet, and it could be shown Neji standing. While his clothes were still on, they've seen better days, and while Neji himself was showing signs of a damaged arm and chest, he was still the one standing. A second later, the smoke and dust cleared away to show Naruto's body imprinted into the arena wall. Like Neji, his clothes shown in bad shape, he himself being in even worse shape. Genma slowly approached Naruto to check him. Reaching Naruto, he checked his pulse to find it going, but could see he was unconscious. Seeing him out, Genma went to make the call. Seeing as Uzumaki Naruto is out, the winner of the first match is Hyuga Pop. Genma was abruptly cut off by the small popping noise. He turned to notice the Naruto in the arena wall was in fact a clone. Neji, seeing him gone, quickly turned his Byakugan back on, only to notice just too late where Naruto had gone. In another resounding pop, Naruto appeared right in front of him. Not giving Neji a second to recover, Naruto quickly punched Neji in the gut with all his might, and seeing him gasp for breath, decided to signal the end. Raising his right thumb up from his fist, he quickly gave the sign for execution over his throat while sticking his tongue outside of his mouth6. His moment done, he quickly grabs Neji and raises him onto his shoulder with Neji's legs going over his back. With a speedy spin, he pulls Neji's body down towards the ground and places his head between his thighs. And with a quick jump forwards, drops Neji head first into the ground, with Naruto's knees holding his skull in place during the move, leading to all three parts making contact on the ground at the same time. Letting Neji's legs go, then join the rest of his sore, busted, and bruised body on the ground. Flipping Neji over so he was facing him, the move causing Neji to land with his face into the ground, Naruto stood over him with a kunai to the throat. Seeing that Neji was in no position to move or retaliate, Genma finally called the match, with Hyuga Neji being unable to move. Uzumaki Naruto is the winner of match 1. There was a brief silence with his declaration until one could hear clapping up in the stands. Naruto quickly turned to see his Oji-sen being the first to start, following after him was Kurabi, the Arise, and the girls that found his new look interesting. Almost immediately following that the whole audience started to clap for the match. For a second Naruto thought he heard a scream of the crazy proctor lady saying something like, "The Gakis made me rich." Hahaha. Deciding to leave it be for now, he removed his kunai from Neji's throat. Looking down at him he saw Neji's expression and guessed what he was thinking. "I hinged into a rock after the explosion kicked so many up. I had my clone that I made after hitting the wall throw me after you. I knew your Byakugan would be off after our clash, so I used that opening to sneak under your guard." Seeing no way to refute him at this point he could only say, "I guess you were right. Maybe there is no fate after all. Seeing the medics come to collect Neji, Naruto gave him some parting words to think on. Even a caged bird can break free once he's wise enough to break the lock with his beak. Seeing his words heard he quickly got up and headed for the ramp to enter the contestants' box. Before exiting the arena floor Naruto raised his gauntlet-covered right fist into the air, followed by the sounds of a thunderstorm playing over the PA system. With his little bit of fun over he headed off the arena floor. After going up a few steps and taking a quick look around, seeing no one around Naruto grabbed his stomach and right arm while spitting up a bit of blood. The pain being a bit too much to bear Naruto sat on the ground resting against the wall. Focusing with what energy he had he activated the seal on his hand and resealed Kurama. Looking at his right arm he saw burns all over it, most of which were just now starting to heal. His thoughts were quickly broken by Kyuubi's presence. "I guess there are still some kinks to work out, huh? Yeah, my damn arm feels like I just put it into the forge's fire. I'm also feeling a little lightheaded," thought Naruto. The pain was at this point becoming so intolerable and distracting, he didn't even realize someone had come up to him till they put a hand on his head. Feeling the hand and the immense relief right after contact, Naruto turned to see his healer. Sadly the pain temporarily blurred his vision, but the voice he soon heard led him to know exactly who it was that was helping him. "You always were one to go the extra mile to help someone. I just wish it didn't require you to cause yourself so much pain, Naruto-kun." Smiling at their concern Naruto's sight finally returned and he voiced his thanks. "Well, with a beautiful nurse like you to always be there to patch me up, I kinda think it's worth it. Don't ya think, Haku-chan?" Seeing her pretty brown eyes looking into his bright blues, he could only smile and blush as she continued to heal him working on his burned arm now. As she worked Naruto took the time to see Haku's new outfit she got since coming to Konoha with his team. On was her gender-hiding battle kimono and in its place was a long-sleeved deep blue sweater, one that was both comfy but very noticeable form-fitting. In place of the pants she wore before was a light blue skirt, one she got in fact at Dustin's shop to allow her to be easily mobile during battles. Besides her new Konoha headband on her head and the standard ninja tool sheaths at her waist, she wore regular Kunoichi-style sandals. Although hers were a strong wooden pair with a jet black paint job to them. Her final touch was she kept her hair down instead of in the ponytail she had when they fought on the bridge, something Naruto admitted he liked more so than the ponytail. As he was admiring her new look Haku herself was just about finished with the major injuries Naruto suffered from his battle with the Hyuga. Seeing her work done she got back to her feet and assisted Naruto to his own. Before she could return to the medic bay she noticed Naruto limping a bit and using her position given to her from the Hokage, took Naruto's arm in hers and helped him walk back to the contestants' box. Noticing her aid Naruto spoke up while trying and failing to hide his blush, "I'm quite fine Haku-chan, I can get back up to the box on my own." All Haku did was smile and put on her best medic nin voice and said, "Now Naruto-kun, well that may be so, I'm still a trained medic and partially in charge of taking care of you when not required for other duties. But that in mind right now you require that aid. So just relax and allow me to do my job and help you rest before your next battle." Seeing the look in her eyes and knowing he won't be able to talk her out of this, just let her lead him back up top to watch the next matches. Fighter's box. There was a brief intermission till the next match, mostly on account of Naruto's gauntlet and Neji's Kaiten ripped up the field something fierce. As they waited for the next battle to be called those that watched the last match had their own thoughts on how it went. Let's have a peek into those heads of theirs shall we? And Kuro, okay, if I wasn't sure before I'm sure now, I'm definitely withdrawing from my match. No way I'm gonna take a chance fighting against that blonde Gaki's gauntlet. He'll most likely destroy Karasu with one blow. The Mari, wow, who would have thought that short orange wearing, loud mouth could not only beat the Hyuga. But also do so and make it look easy. And it wasn't bad seeing a little of those nice muscles he has either. Regardless of Ka-sen's wishes, Uzumaki will be a far better opponent to test my existence against than the Uchiha. She know him, this new tool of his worries my hive, but even more so because of the chakra scaring them and not the fire, this is a bit troubling. He wasn't lying when he said he'd make the Hyuga pay. He definitely kept his word, I just hope he keeps his word to me. Although blushes the second choice I was given doesn't sound as bad as it did before. Vegito, nice job Uzumaki, I can't wait till it's my turn to fight you. Maybe I can get you to agree with a little bet over it. I sure know what I want if I win. Oh kitten, I'm so proud of you. Shut up Nebi. As the last of their thoughts on Naruto's win were finished, we turn now to Naruto himself entering the fighter's box with Haku still providing aid till he can walk safely on his own. Something that caused some measure of annoyance to the participating kunoichi present, especially when all three were starting to show their own signs of interest in our favorite blonde. Being held very closely to said unknown female didn't do their growing anger any better, especially with all the noticeable touching she was doing, not realizing she was doing so to check for any more injuries. Unaware of her actions causing said issues with the present kunoichi, Haku lead Naruto over to his opponents and helping him rest on the provided chairs. She helps situate him in a way that feels most comfortable while using every opportunity to stay close to him. Something neither Kin nor Yujito failed to notice and was slowly pissing them off. Deciding to gain his attention from the other girl, Yujito said, "Congrats on your win Uzumaki. If I wasn't as excited before than I am now. I can't wait to fight you when I get the chance." Seeing another girl getting up close to Naruto, Kin decided she didn't want to be left out. She came up and gave Naruto a once-over. Something that didn't go unnoticed by Haku or Yujito. Before either could make an attempt at getting her away, she said, "How are you feeling Uzumaki-kun? You looked a little unsteady walking up here." Not wanting her to try and getting any cozier with her Naruto-kun, Haku subtly pushed her aside and went back to checking Naruto's injuries while saying, "He's mostly fine, but don't worry, I've got everything under control." While to most it would seem like a simple statement, to most, Kin and Yujito could clearly sense the hidden meaning in her words, "Back off my man bitch." Not noticing the growing tension in the air, Naruto spoke up, breaking whatever possibility of a coming catfight that would have most likely happened. "It's nothing to worry about Yujito-san, Kin-san. I just a little sore and tired, but I'll be up and ready in a few minutes." All three blushed at his smile he directed to them in hopes they'd stop worrying over him. However, the moment his eyes went back to the arena below and the girls noticed the blushes on the others' cheeks, then instantly went back to glaring at each other, all thinking the same thought, "Next chance I get, I'm gutting these bitches." Just as Genma made the call for the next match, Naruto suddenly felt a shiver go up his spine. "Why do I feel like I just became the center of something I'd much rather run away from?" Not realizing the coming storm Naruto's unknowingly caused, he turned to hear Genma call forth the next genin for the coming match. Chapter end. Chapter 6. Haku's Memories and Bells vs Weasel. Konoha arena floor. "Will Sabaku no Kankuro and Aburam Shino please come to the arena floor?" was the command of Genma as he called for the next round. Hearing his name called, Shino made his way to the stairs to reach the ground below. Noticing the eyes on him, Kankuro's thought though were on an entirely different matter. "Man, if I head down to fight now, I'll possibly show them any of my moves as well as what Karasu is capable of. Best to give up and wait for the invasion." With his decision made, Kankuro rose his hand to call for his forfeiture, only to hear behind him the words of a certain Uzumaki, "I sure hope you weren't going to quit. After all that big talk earlier, I guess you're just that, talk." Turning around to look at the former orange-wearing ninja, Kankuro sneered. Before he could retort, Naruto continued. "You were about to, weren't you? And here I thought you Sunanins were tough and here to win, or are you like that arrogant Odo-nin that got beat by Shino, all talk and no action?" "Oh yeah, that real funny," coming from a gaki that wore a bright orange jumpsuit and shouted at the top of his lungs that he was gonna win this and become a Chunin. Kankuro shot back. His smirk dropped at seeing Naruto's own, "Had that may be so, but at least I ain't wearing a giant black catsuit and cover my face with my sister's makeup. True, it's better to wear dark colors for our profession, but I'd think something more like what Mr. Raccoon and the hot blonde on your team would be better options. You're wearing all black and you live in the desert where you dropped on your head as a child." Hearing the snickering around him from the other competitors, Kankuro's mood darkened. He was about to give the blonde a few words before a voice was heard from down below. "Will Kankuro come to the arena floor for his match? Unless he wishes to forfeit, you have 1 minute." Was the yell from Genma at the ground floor. Turning around to give his reply to the proctor only to be cut off again. "Go on, forfeit. I guess watching what Shino did to that big-mouthed Odo shinobi must have scared you too much. That or you're afraid of me. Maybe that's it, you're afraid of having to face me afterwards. Well, don't, because if you're hesitating now to fight Shino, then you obviously will neither win against him or stand a chance against me." Growling in the back of his throat, Kankuro turned to see that damnable smirk on Naruto's face and feeling his pride take one too many hits, decided to wipe it from his face for good. Quickly turning to the arena floor, Kankuro hopped over the guardrail and landed on the ground while walking up to Genma and Shino. Seeing both genin present, Genma yelled out, "Are both fighters ready?" Receiving a nod from both, he raises his hand and as he brings it down, shouts, "Hajime." At his call Genma jumped away to give them space while keeping a close eye on the oncoming action. I've decided on not showing the match between the two since I both don't think I could do it right and felt it better to show more on Naruto's actions regarding his other opponents, as well as Haku's explanation on how she survived the Nami no Kuni mission. So with that in mind the fight is very similar to canon. Only less trees, though there are more than just the small few in canon. Fighters stand. As Naruto and the others watching the beginnings of the match, Tamari turned to have a word with our favorite blonde. However, like those before her, she ended up being blocked by Haku. Naruto-kun, who do you think will win this match? Looking to his pretty nurse attendant, he was about to reply before being cut off by Tamari2. Kankuro will win. He's one of the best puppet users in the village and also the best Kugutsu no Jutsu user in the genin forces of Suna. Were the words of one prideful Suna Kunoichi. Turning now to face Tamari, Naruto said, if he's one of your best, then that's not saying much since he was about to quit before his match even began. Unless running away after talking big is a part of Suna's puppetry skill set. Seeing the knowing smirk on his face, Tamari scowled at forgetting that small detail. Turning over to Haku, Naruto spoke again, to answer your question though Haku-chan, I'm putting my faith in that Shino will either win or force a draw. You seem pretty confident on that belief, Whiskers. But how much are you willing to wager, I presume, on that assumption? Was the challenging statement by one Yujito Nai. Turning towards the blonde Kumonin, Naruto replied, enough to bet this. If Shino loses, I'll do any favor asked of me from the both of you. As long as it doesn't have me breaking any laws or regulations with my village, that is. Hearing his challenge, both Tamari and Yujito blushed at his wager, both thinking of the not so clean ideas they had if they win said bet. Before anyone could say another word, Haku spoke, are you sure, Naruto-kun? That seems a bit too daring a challenge to give. Seeing the worry on Haku's face, Naruto gave her a small smile. Don't worry too much, even if I lose the bet I'm sure they won't try anything that will either get me in trouble or cause me any danger. Well, he said this as certain Nico had other thoughts in mind, accept the deal, kitten. Quickly before that young Tom changes his mind. Quiet, Nibi. Where the only response said Bijuu God. Dismissing the more than inappropriate thought sent from the giant Nico in her mind, Yujito replied, alright, I'll accept the wager, although, what will you want in return, should the Aburum win? Nodding her head at the question, Tamari focused back on the blonde male. Thinking on it for a moment, Naruto snapped his fingers at an idea. Okay, if Shino wins, you two will have to teach me a jutsu of your respective element. And before you ask, I don't care what kind of jutsu it is. It could be a ranked one for all I care, just one jutsu each. How's that? Seeing as he wasn't asking for anything really big or ridiculous, both girls nodded and shook his hand to seal the deal. While this was going on, one Tsuchi-kin felt a little left out, so deciding to try to grab the attention of our favorite blonde, she asked a question. Naruto-kun. I forgot to ask you earlier of a question I wanted to ask you. Looking over at Kin, while blushing only minorly, Naruto replied, sure, what is it? Where did you learn those sealing techniques from? I saw you working on some the few times I came by the shop you worked at. I don't think I've ever seen the ones you were studying. Hearing her question, Naruto took a moment to talk with his interior neighbor. What do you think, Kurama? How much should I tell her? Well, seeing as it's only asking for trouble if you just speak the truth, I'd go with more along the line of half-truths instead. That way you can answer her question without giving out too much information. Internally nodding his head, Naruto said, most were some old scrolls I found in older parts of the village's archives that are hardly used much anymore. Others were taught to me by my sensei. However, during Naruto's brief inner talk with his demon kin ended up in another glaring contest, with not only Haku but Yujito and Tamari as well. In fact, the girls were so into their little stare-off that not only did none hear his words, but he could have sworn he saw lightning of all things shot from between all four Kunoichi's eyes. All he could do was sweat drop at their actions and look onwards confused. While Naruto looked on in confusion and a touch of apprehension, Haku, Yujito, and Tamari had the same thought going through their heads. How dare she call him Naruto-kun? Their little contest was soon broken by a small but noticeable cough. All four turned to see a slightly nervous Naruto. Realizing he had seen their small scene, all four immediately blushed in embarrassment. Deciding to get things back on track, Naruto repeated his answer to Kin's earlier question. Hearing his response, Kin said, oh, I see, I was mostly curious cause I'm a bit interesting in seals myself and have tried to learn more on them. Sadly, Odo doesn't have any real sealing experts, and the few that know anything aren't what you would call the teaching type. Hearing her words and seeing the slightly disappointed look on her face, Naruto spoke up, well, if it's no real problem, I could show you a thing or two at a later point. Surprised at his words, Kin could only smile at his thoughtfulness and blush a little at the large smile he sent her. Seeing this, Haku could only smile herself at Naruto's actions. He always wants to help people no matter who they are. It's that same concern and care that saved me on the bridge in Nami. She could only smile more at thinking about how determined he was at saving her that day. Flash back to the battle on the bridge. Please, Naruto-san, kill me. Those were the words of one Yuki Haku as she looked on at the still slightly enraged Uzumaki. Having used up nearly all of her chakra and being beat to all hell by a partly Kyuubified Naruto, she had nothing left to fight with. Seeing him hesitate, Haku tried to rile him up enough to do the deed. "I've just killed your friend and teammate, why have you stopped? I cannot fight back anymore, neither can I hardly stand. Kill me." Noticing her despite pleas weren't getting them anywhere, she tried to yell at him again only for Naruto to speak up. "Why damn it. Why would someone like you not only work for someone like Zabuza, but also someone like Gato? And why do you think me killing you will do anything?" Hearing his own small plea, Haku begins to recount her early life in Mizuno Kuni. From her birth up to her discovery of her bloodline, and then of that horrible day where she watched her mother's murder by her father's hands and her subsequent killing of him and the mob he brought to kill them. Eventually bring about to her coming across Zabuza and his taking her in, along with all the training and care he took in looking after her. Hoping her story would bring the needed courage for Naruto to end her life, she finished with asking him a final time to kill her. Naruto, still slightly dumbfounded, could only ask, "Is this really the only way?" Seeing his depressed face, Haku could only sadly smile at him for his concern, but pushing her slowly growing feelings aside, she said, "Yes, I can no longer serve him effectively, so please Naruto-kun. Kill me." However, at hearing her words, two things happened that would change the outcome of this moment and change fate's plan concerning Haku and what was to happen here on this day forever. 3. Unknown to both Haku and Naruto in his weakened state, Zabuza heard nearly all that the two said, even from the large distance from them. Now for most such a thing wouldn't be possible, what with the constant splashing of the waves from down below and the constant sounds of battle going on between him and Kakashi. But for someone like Zabuza that was a much different matter altogether. See, alongside his training in the silent killing techniques, one not only needs great stealth skills, but also a great sense of hearing. And that was something Zabuza had in spades. Alongside his great sense of hearing, he also had the advantage of a sensory removal, which is to say the ability to temporarily shut down a sense at will. And with his currently closed eyes and lose of smell, caused by a broken nose via Kakashi's fist, Zabuza heard nearly everything both young teens had been talking about after the brief explosion of chakra caused by Naruto's temporary release of Kyuubi. No, alongside Zabuza one other heard her words, those of course being one Uzumaki Naruto obviously. Now at first Naruto had taken to killing Haku, no matter how much it bothered him, a little bit more easier since it was his technically last request. However, at his calling him Naruto-kun, he realized something that made said option get thrown out the proverbial window. Haku cared about him. He had some concern for his well-being. For now, knowing this, he could not in any way kill him, but also realizing Haku would possibly kill himself, Naruto decided to try knocking Haku out. However, during his moment of thought and preparation for said action, things changed. As Haku saw Naruto charge at her, kunai in hand, to finish it, she felt almost instantly the silent need to defend Zabuza. Knowing she may still serve a purpose to him after all, she quickly dodged Naruto's attack and with a call of, "I'm sorry Naruto-kun, but there's still one last thing I can do for Zabuza-sama," she used the last of her chakra to create an ice mirror to warp to Zabuza's side. However, as said before, Zabuza listened in on Haku and Naruto's conversation and realizing the true depth of her loyalty to him and her growing bonds with Naruto, he knew that something had to change. Seeing Kakashi's incoming kill shot using that noticeable powerful jutsu intent on goring him to death, knew exactly what Haku was planning. So it came as no surprise to him when she appeared via her ice mirror in front of him to act as a human shield for the coming Raiten jutsu. However, as some beliefs and stories say, when one feels death upon them, time seems to slow and their life flashes before their very eyes, and in that instant Zabuza saw not just his life but Haku's as well. And at that moment knew that she didn't deserve to end it like this. So in a move that shocked all present, that being Kakashi, Haku, and a just arriving Naruto, Zabuza ripped his very arm to shreds to escape the hold held on him by Kakashi's ninkin. Using what little control and strength in said arm left, he pushed her out of the attack's range. But to the sound of flesh being pierced and a large quantity of blood spewing forth from both Zabuza's mouth and chest, all became silent of the bridge. All three ninja could only watch in bewilderment at Zabuza's sacrifice. Knowing his former enemy's life was not long for this world, Kakashi stopped the flow of chakra to his hand and slowly lowered Zabuza to the floor. Haku gradually approached the dying body of her master as a growing trail of tears fell from her eyes. "No, no, 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 no. Zabuza-sama. Why, it was supposed to be me," she screamed as she threw her arms around his wounded body. Feeling a hand on her shoulder, Haku turned her head to see a solemn faced Naruto looking at her. Shaking him off, she hugged Zabuza's body and cried even more over him. However, in her hysterics, she heard a small voice break her from her episode, "Stop crying, cough on my account, Haku." Looking downwards at his face, she saw the still alive Zabuza looking at her. "Zabuza-sama, hold on, I'll heal you. Just give me a moment and you'll be up soon." Were Haku's frantic words at seeing him still alive, if just barely. However, as she reached for her supplies in her pouch, a hand grabbed it and slowly moved it away. Looking up at Naruto, she quickly tried to pull away, only for Naruto to shake his head. Before she could push him away, Zabuza's voice claimed her attention again. "Don't waste your time on me, Haku. I'm not gonna survive this no matter what you try." Shaking her head in despair, she yelled out, "No, I can fix this. I will heal you and we can try getting a job somewhere else. Someplace better with better pay for your chance at restarting your rebellion in Kiri." Unfortunately for Haku, Zabuza knew this was his last few minutes alive. Accepting this, he turned, with what little strength he had left, to Kakashi and Naruto. "I want you two to promise me here and now, Kakashi, to take care of Haku for me. The same goes for you too, Gaki. Take her with you to Konoha." Breathes heavily and have her start a new life there. "She has no connections to Kiri outside of me, and that's not much anyways," said Zabuza. Understanding his dying wish, Kakashi nodded, figuring not only would this bring a new bloodline to Konoha, but someone with knowledge of several Kurigakure unique jutsu and knowledge. How selfish this might be, it would keep the more darker elements of Konoha's council and military from abusing her. Especially if Naruto can persuade the Sandaime to protect her. Nodding his head at Zabuza, he looked over at Naruto to see him nodding as well. Naruto himself spoke up, "I figured you were just using Haku for your own gains." He gains a small smirk. "I guess I wasn't entirely right. I promised to protect Haku and take him to Konoha and give him a chance at a new life from this one. And Uzumaki Naruto never breaks his promises." Smirking a little at Naruto's words and lack of knowledge to Haku's true gender, he just nodded and turned back to Haku, who was now crying on his chest. "Haku." Lifting her head at hearing her name, "I want you to promise me that you'll keep on living and not allow my passing to keep you from doing so. I want you to go with them to Konoha and make a new life for yourself, a better life. Understand?" Seeing her nod, he turned back to Kakashi. "Two last favors if you don't mind, Kakashi." "Sure," Kakashi replied. "Burn my body after this and help Haku learn to wield my blade. It's tradition after all. A member of the Seven Swordsmen pass on their blade to a student, whether through retirement or death. And in this case Haku's deserves it most of all," said Zabuza, seeing the son of the White Fang nod. Feeling his life start to ebb away, he closed his eyes and said, "Goodbye Haku, you were the daughter I never had and I love you, Musume." Hearing those words, Haku whispered in reply, "I love you to Otu-san." Soon all was quiet and Zabuza's breath stopped. In her still depressed state, Haku spoke, "Otu-san." Zabuza, "Otu-san. Tusan." Realizing what's finally happened, Haku broke down again, crying over the deceased body of her father. Lowering his head in mourning, Kakashi lowered his headband. Naruto himself just looked on as Haku cried, only for the depressing silence to be broken by a loud clapping. With Zabuza's death, the mist he conjured via the Kurigakure no Jutsu lessened till it was all but gone, only to show a short man dressed in a business suit, standing amongst a small army of mercenaries. Said midget soon spoke, "Well, I guess I was right after all. Zabuza was a baby demon in the end. Didn't even kill an old bridge builder, one man, and a bunch of brats. Well, it's no skin of my back anyways, I wasn't gonna pay him in the end after all." Following his small speech, he started to laugh alongside his hired help. However, hearing his words only caused to enrage Haku. "You bastard. Zabuza died trying to do your dirty work and you didn't intend to pay us," were the words of one very angry and distressed Kunoichi. Seeing the person who had the gall to yell at him and recognizing her, the now revealed Gato yelled back, "Oh, I see, you're that little bitch that broke my arm. I'll make sure to pay you back extra for that." Turning to his thugs, Gato ordered, "I'll pay double to whoever brings me Tazuna's head and that little bitch alive and mostly unspoiled." Turning his attention back to Haku. "I plan to have a little fun with you for what you did to my arm." At his words, most of the mercenaries started to cheer while a few charged. One particular eager thug quickly drew a crossbow and aimed at Haku, only for his shot to be body blocked by Naruto. Said Uzumaki took the deadly bolt straight in the stomach, with nearly the entire bolt inside him. All present of the completed side of the bridge stared horrified at Naruto's action. Combining the pain from the crossbow bolt and his earlier fight with Haku was too much for the Konoha genin, and soon Naruto passed out from the pain and severe exhaustion. As Haku screamed and fried at Naruto's move to save her, she rushed to his aid, only for something very surprising to follow. What no one knew at the time was that since Naruto's learning of Kyuubi being sealed within him and his first use of its chakra during the battle with Haku, said Bijuu has slowly been gaining more and more ground and making contact with his vessel. The recent actions that have led to more than one life-threatening situations for Naruto has enabled the Kyuubi some measure of control in their shared mindscape. Said control being mostly limited to viewing memories and seeing parts of the outside world through Naruto's eyes. With his most recent conduct, those being using the fox's power earlier and now taking the shot meant for Haku with said bolt hitting directly on his seal, has allowed the fox an opportunity to take some actions of his own. Knowing that the death of his container would only cause terrible repercussions for him, Kyuubi used what little time he had to briefly take over Naruto's body. That leads us to the cause for Haku and Kakashi's fearful situation now as Naruto's body was, for the second time today, being covered by a red-orange cloak of chakra. Said chakra and power giving off a very terrifying and dark sensation. Others too soon felt the presence, those including Tazuna, Sakura and one Uchiha Sasuke that had just recently awakened from his false death state caused by Haku earlier. The mercenaries and Geto, however, in their own foolishness and arrogance, saw nothing truly fearful from the display. Most would account this to a combination of stupidity and false belief that both numbers and money would protect them from this new apparently small problem. You can only guess the believers of such thoughts. What happened next astonished all present when the newly revived Naruto grabbed what little of the bolt still in his gut remained on the outside and ripped the whole thing from his chest. Dropping the now useless weapon, Naruto opened his eyes to reveal the slitted eyes of one Kyuubi no Kitsune and dashed towards his enemies. Ignoring the cries of his sensei and new friend, Naruto ran as fast he could towards the amassed group of thugs until he was only few feet before them. Knowing he had only so much time outside, Kyuubi drew in what amount of chakra he could draw forth and focused it to the vicinity of his lungs. With one deep breath followed by an incredible roar, he exhaled a sea of flames from his mouth. Said flames engulfed the League of Men and continued onwards till nearly all were burning alive, only those that stayed near Geto, which was very few, what with his added money incentive from earlier, survived. Watching in horror at his near entire army's demise, he fell backwards on his ass and slowly tried to crawl away. Only for that to be stopped by an arrow landing smack dab behind him. Those still alive on the bridge swung their heads around to see a large column of people standing there. All ages and genders were present, standing together holding a large assortment of random tools and makeshift weapons. It took only a second for those present to realize the large collection of people were in fact nearly the entire population of Nami. At the head of this group was none other than Inari and Tsunami, Inari himself holding the crossbow that released the arrow that landed near Geto. Seeing the large group of people here, Kyuubi decided he overstayed his welcome and released his hold on Naruto. This causing said Uzumaki to land face first on the ground, truly and fully knocked out. Seeing Naruto fall once again, Haku made a quick dash for his body and dragged it as fast as she could in her current exhausted state over to Kakashi. Still having some chakra left, Kakashi placed his hand on Haku's shoulder and spoke, "Leave the rest to me, you watch over Naruto while I help the people here clean up this mess." With a small inclination of her head, she went to checking over Naruto, while Kakashi went to finish off the rest of the mercs and capture Geto, immediately afterwards going over to check on his other two students. Looking down at Naruto, Haku could only give a small smile at his earlier words, and said smile grew as she heard him say her name in his sleep. "I promised to live on Zabuza too-san, I'll live and do so," at Naruto-kun's side. Then flashback, Shausa, with both Sabaku no Kankuro and Aburame Shino unable to stand, "I declare this match to be a draw." The shouting of one Shiranui Genma. Following his words, the stands erupted with cheers for the interesting matchup and great display of insect jutsu versus puppet jutsu. Hearing the proctor's call and the stadium's cheers broke Haku from her reminiscing. Turning to look at the field below, she sees as medic Nin gather both Shino and Kankuro on a pair of stretchers and carry them off to the nursing station set up for this tournament. Realizing she missed the whole thing during her recollection of the events that lead her to Konoha, she turned to ask Naruto about it, only for her mood to darken. Reason being one Tsuchi-kin standing near shoulder to shoulder with her Naruto-kun. More than a little pissed off at this hussy trying to get close to her Naruto, she walked over to try to regain his attention. At her approach, she caught the end of their conversation, "And don't worry, after everything concerning the exams is over, I'll start teaching you some Fuinjutsu lessons, K. Arigato Naruto-kun, and I do appreciate the help," replied Kin. "What are the two of you talking about?" Both ninja turned to see Haku behind them smiling, although in reality it was mostly forced. "I was just talking to Kin-chan here about some things, you were a bit deep in thought earlier, so I figured to let you be. What were you thinking about so much earlier? You didn't respond when I was talking to you a few minutes ago." Seeing his slight concern, Haku just smiled and said, "Just remembering how we met and what brought me to living here is all." At hearing her answer, Naruto began to blush from embarrassment, mostly on account of the fact that Naruto eventually learned of Haku's real gender after accidentally walking in on her while she was in the shower. Thank Kami she didn't scream. Back to the present, Naruto looked to see Haku and Kin glaring at each other again. Before he could try to separate them, Genma was heard from down below, "Would Tsuchi-kin of Odo and Sabaku no Tamari of Suna please come down to the arena floor for their match?" Hearing her name called, Kin turned around to head for the stair, only for her right hand to be grabbed. She looked over to see Naruto had done so. "Just wanted to wish you good luck, Kin-chan." Blushing a little at his words, Kin responded with a thank you and headed for the stairs. Before more could be said, Tamari quickly said, "And what about me, Naruto-kun?" Haku could easily hear the heavy inflection she placed on the kun suffix after his name, not liking it, she grabbed his arm and pulled him towards her. Not really noticing Haku's quite hostile feeling towards Temari, Naruto said, "I'd say good luck, but I quickly remembered what you did to Tenten-chan, so never mind." Seeing his frown and hearing the less than happy tone with her, Temari could only sigh and give a sad smile in return. "I guess now would be a bad time to say I'm sorry, huh?" Naruto slowly reined in his anger, but still replied, "Yes it is, not to mention the real recipient of that apology should be Tenten, not me." Nodding her head at that, she slowly walked down the steps, seeing her downcast form and cursing at his noble and chivalric ways. Naruto called out, "Still, it says something for your character to wanna apologize, even if it doesn't seem like you're truly sorry. Talk with me and Tenten after the exams, and I might forgive you. Whether Tenten does is up to you." Listening to his little speech, Temari could only smile a bit and nod her head. As she continued down the steps, her thoughts were another story. "Great, look what you've pulled yourself into this time, Temari. Falling for a guy that might not survive the invasion, and if things go the way they're planned then I very well might meet my end at his hands with everything that's been happening today. I wish Ka-san was still alive, she'd have known what to do, better than Tusan at least." Arena ground floor. Soon both Kunoichi were standing apart from each other. "Are both of you ready?" asked Genma. Receiving a nod from both, he raised his hand, then brought it down as he made the call, "Hajime." With the call made, both girls shot into action. As Genma jumped backwards, Kin sent several senbon racing towards Temari. Seeing the attack coming, the Suna Kunoichi brought forth her fan and batted them away while still closed. Not being deterred, Kin continued with a small onslaught of senbon needles, interestingly enough none of which had a bell attached to them. Temari continued batting them away, showing no signs of tiring or injury, proving none hit her. Stopping after a few more throws, Kin began a quick charge mid-throw, hoping to catch Temari off guard during her blocking. This proved only minorly successful, since the space between the two was only a few yards. Temari, while being able to block all the senbon, was slightly surprised by her opponent's head-on attack. Still being prepared for physical confrontations, she quickly positioned her fan for melee combat, only to be shocked by the Kin she was about to strike vanish in front of her. It was only through her well-trained reflexes she was able to avoid the kunai sent at the back of her head. Turning, she sees Kin sent 3 more kunai her way, deciding to dodge this time so as to keep her eyes on her. Temari ducks and dives to the side, avoiding the kunai, only to meet the Tsuchi girl's knee, ramming straight into her face. Said blow sent the eldest Sabaku backwards on her back. Quickly getting to her feet, Temari looks to see multiple Kin surrounding her, far more than were used against Shikamaru in the prelims. Remembering Kin's specialty, Temari quickly brings her hands up to realize the Jinjutsu placed on her. With a shout of Kai. The Jinjutsu was broken and showed the true Kin to be nowhere in sight. However, with her senses back in control, she quickly noticed the growing shadow growing above her. Looking up, she sees the real Tsuchi Kin diving straight for her, with several more senbon held in between her fingers. Noticing the chance she had, Temari unveiled her fan and brought it back while calling her jutsu's name, Kamitachi no Jutsu. Temari sent a large blast of cutting winds towards the airborne Kin. Not being able to avoid the jutsu, Kin quickly threw all of her senbon around the main center of the wind technique, and after doing so brought her arms and legs in to shield herself as best she could. Alongside the cutting winds, the jutsu also ended up sending Kin straight into the arena wall, oddly enough right near the same hole Naruto made in his own collision. Bringing her fan down to rest, Temari smirked, looking over at Genma, who went to check on Kin's state. He soon found her conscious in a small crater in the wall. Seeing the match finished, Genma raised his hand to make the call, only to hear for the second time this day a familiar pop come from the crater. Taking another look, he saw to his slight surprise a small piece of paper in the hole instead, oddly enough one shaped like a person. 6. Realizing Kin escaped her again, Temari sharply turned around her to see if she was hiding in any of the few trees surrounding the battlefield. Not seeing her, Temari put her hands in the Jinjutsu release sign again to break any possible illusions placed on her during the recent time. With a quick eye, she checked to see no changes around her until she looked up to see Kin running at her again. Sadly for Kin, she was too far from her to avoid the next attack. Having gotten tired of Kin's tactics and this fight, she brought her fan up and released another Kamitachi jutsu and blasted Kin into a tree. Not wanting any more tricks, quickly bring the fan back for another attack. Temari called out a new jutsu. This will end it. To Kamitachi no Jutsu. With her cry and swing of the fan, she sent forth an incredibly large stream of wind towards Kin. Said attack engulfed both Kin and the surrounding trees. It went on to destroy most of the trees in the arena, as well as leaving a massive crater in the wall. Folding up her fan and leaning on it, Temari used her still remaining strength to stand. Damn it, that jutsu still takes a lot out of me. Gonna need to rest a bit after this so I can be ready for the coming invasion. At least I know there's no way she'll get up from that. Soon the dust settled and revealed to everyone present Kin's form. 7. Temari smiled at seeing her lying beat up and unconscious on top of a few trees while being stuck under another. Genma hurried over to check her status only to find none. Seeing as she was killed, Genma raised his hand to call the match, only for both himself and Temari to be fooled again. A. Play Mega Man X Command Mission Ost, T05 Marino the Thief, play till chapter ends. I don't think so. Was the loud voice of a very alive Tsuchi-kin. Raising her head to look at Temari, she said, if you think your little breeze was gonna take me out that easily, you're dead wrong. Soon the world began to distort around both Genma and Temari, as well as nearly the entire stadium. In a small flash all that was shown is a still destroyed forest, but no kin. Looking around for her, neither Temari nor most in the arena could see her anywhere, only to hear a small chuckling heard from all around the Colosseum. 9. Looking for me? Everyone soon turned to see Kin standing on the very top of the stadium's ceiling, right at the edge of the hole in the roof. She was looking nonetheless for where, showing only the signs of being thrown the first time into the trees before the larger attack following. Before more could be said by anyone, Kin brought her hands up into the Hebe hand seal. All around Temari and the ground itself rose numerous senbon. Oddly enough, the spacing seemed evenly placed, as well as the fact every other senbon would have a bell at the end. You know, it said we got a whole month to prepare for the finals, later pushed to 2. One would think that at least one of you participants would have the forethought to make preparations in the very ring before the matches themselves. Many, realizing what Kin was saying, stare at her in shock. Page Booth. Arakage could only sit there and laugh, who have thought to actually set up traps beforehand in the very arena itself before the month wait was over. Calming down a bit, he then said, I'm starting to like this girl. The Sandaime himself couldn't help but chuckle a bit at her actions. Indeed, to think she came here and had set up a plan before she even fought is truly incredible. I think I can see a bright future for this young Kunoichi if she continues to surprise us in the coming fights. All present in the booth nodded their heads at his words, although the Kazuki less enthusiastic than the others present. Arena floor. Realizing she needed to do something before Kin began whatever it was she was planning, Temari brought her fan to bear and readied another wind jutsu to try to finish her. Sadly, Kin had other plans. Before she could finish her swing, Temari left forth a pain-filled scream. In fact, the pain was so much she released her hold on her fan and fell to her knees. After a bit the pain slowly subsided, only to hear a voice in front of her. It hurts, doesn't it? And before you try to break it, don't bother, this particular jinjutsu is far more complex than you'd imagine. Looking up, she sees the face of Kin not 2 feet from her. Raising her head to look up towards the roof, she sees another Kin still standing there and still holding the hand seal. Before you ask, no, I'm just a clone of sorts. That's the real me up there. No, here's what's gonna happen, you can either surrender or make you feel so much pain you pass out. Either way I win, but you'll get less pain if you choose option A with her part, said the Kin clone. Raised her hand and held up 3 fingers. I'll give you 3 seconds to decide. At her word she started to lower 1 finger. Hearing her words, Temari quickly tried to stand, only for her body to heavily protest to the action. 1. Looking at Kin in slight horror, Temari tried once more to stand and sadly again failing to move off her knees. 2. Seeing the second finger fall, Temari started to desperately try to figure a way out of her current situation. Unfortunately, before she could think of any real plan, Kin's voice cut her off. 3. Just as she began to feel the early sensation of pain bubble to the surface, Temari screamed out, I quit. Just please don't. Hearing her give up, Kin, the one up top, released the jinjutsu and dispelled her clone. Hearing Temari quit, Genma raised his hand for the 3rd time in one match even and shouted, Shaoso, winner of match 3. Tsuchi-kin of Odo. The arena was silent for a minute before there was a loud cry from the fighter's box. Yeah. Way to go, Kin-chan. Those nearby are familiar with the shouting, recognized the voice of Uzumaki Naruto doing the shouting. Soon after, the entire arena started to cheer and clap as well, leading to a very loud ovation for Ms. Tsuchi. Smiling brightly at her win, Kin pulled a grappling hook and long rope from her ninja pouch and, hooking the claw onto the roof, slowly rappelled down from her spot. Fighter's box. Naruto couldn't stop clapping. The match was great. He was at first afraid when Kin got sent into the wall, and even more so when she got nearly buried under all the trees. He was a little weirded out by the scene since he thought he saw something else at points during the match. Now going over it with Kurama, they realized that Kin's mass jinjutsu must have only minorly affected them, with him being what he is messed the effects up a bit. Aku could only look onwards with a little annoyance at seeing Kin's skills. Taking note of them, she made sure to work more on her jinjutsu defenses. There's no way I'm letting you beat me for Naruto-kun's heart, you siren whore. Ironically, very similar thoughts were running through one Nai Yujito's mind as well. It didn't help Kin's future plans any that Yujito was being coached along by the Nibi no Bakaneko, Matatabi, very much either. Said coaching being more along the lines of turning the tiny cowgirl, said nickname being for her black and white camo outfit and admittedly larger bust size compared to Yujito, into her very own scratching post. Yes, not good future plans for Yujito indeed. Arena floor. By the time the medics arrived to take care of Temari, Kin had reached the ground. Looking back at Tamari being helped into the stretcher, she called out to her, "Tamari," seeing Tamari face her, "Sorry for being so rough, but it was a bit personal for me." Surprised at her words, Tamari said back none too angrily, "For what? Last I checked no one from Suna has caused a problem with Odo." However, instead of getting angry, Kin just gave a sad smile. "I wasn't talking about Odo, you hurt my friend. Her name's Tenten." At seeing Tamari's surprised face, she continued, "I met her and Naruto over the 2-month period and became fast friends with both. After the time spent together, no matter how short, I decided since I was going to face you, I could use your unnecessary roughness with someone who's from a village allied with yours no less to be my motivation to beat you. And it sure worked out for me, didn't it?" Not being able to really deny her logic, she just stayed quiet as she was taken to the med center. Although Kin's last words to her shocked her, "I be careful on whose side you fight for soon, I'd rather not like to actually kill you." Tamari could only turn to watch as Kin walked off, one hand resting on her hip as she slowly but confidently walked to the stairway. 10. Chapter end. What if Naruto has the Bijuu Armors and harem? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.